Okay, good morning. We don't have a quorum, but I believe Senator Calderon is ready to present his bill, so we'll begin our hearing. Welcome. We're going to hear file item number 2, SB 36. Welcome to Assembly BMP.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Members, SB 36 will conform California's mortgage lending and brokering laws to the Federal Secure and Fair Enforcement for Mortgage Licensing Act, which is called the SAFE Act of 2008. By conforming, we will retain our ability to regulate and supervise the activities of the mortgage loan originators in the state. If we fail to conform, within the United States Department of Housing and Urban Development will take control over the regulation, taking it away from us, and the supervision of all our mortgage loan originators will then be under their umbrella, something we really would love to avoid. SB 36 has support from the California Association of Realtors, the California Mortgage Association, and the California Association of Mortgage Brokers in the Los Angeles County District Attorney's Office. The bill has no opposition. I would respectfully ask for an aye vote.
Okay. Do you have witnesses in support? Any witnesses in opposition?
Real quick support. Good morning, Madam Chair, members. Alan Fernandez on behalf of the California Manufactured Housing Institute. We want to thank the author for working with us to take an amendment to deal with a specific issue in our industry. And with that amendment, we're in support of the bill.
Okay, great. Any other witnesses in support of the bill? And I don't think we have any opposition. Mr. Calderon, we don't have a quorum yet, so we'll take it up as for a vote as soon as we have a quorum. Thank
Understood.
you.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members.
Thank you. Okay, now we have a quorum. Good morning. Yes, I'm aware. Yeah. Okay, we have a quorum. Let's establish a quorum first.
Hayashi.
Here.
Emerson.
Phil.
Emerson.
Here.
Conway. Ng. Hernandez. Nava. Nilo.
Is this roll, or are we taking a
Corin.
We're taking a vote. No, it's roll.
You're issuing your proxy to me.
Sure, whatever you want. I'm here.
John Perez.
Here.
Ruskin. Smythe. Monin.
Okay. We have a quorum. Mr. Monning, welcome to Assembly Business and Professions Committee. We just heard Mr. Calderon's bill. Do we have a motion on the bill?
Move. So move.
We're going to take yours as a second. So it's been moved by Mr. Emerson, second by Ruskin. Please call the roll.
Motion is due pass to appropriation. Hayashi.
Aye.
Hayashi, aye. Emerson.
Aye.
Emerson, aye. Conway. Ng. Hernandez. Nava. Nilo. John Perez.
Aye.
John Perez, aye. Ruskin. Ruskin, aye. Smythe. Monin. Monin, aye. 5-0. Measures on call.
Okay, 5-0. The measure's on call. We will now hear from Mr. Weiland. Welcome to Assembly BMP.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, members. Today, I bring to you SB 788, which we are calling the Professional Counselors Clinical Bill. Under current law for mental health practitioners at the master's level, there are two types recognized and licensed in the state of California. One we're very familiar with, MFTs.
It's a good
That's an efficient committee. Madam Chair, I could ask for an aye vote now, which I'm pleased to do, but I do have 3 or 4 who've come quite a ways to give some testimony, and I'd appreciate it if
Of course, welcome.
we would allow them to speak. In short, and they will explain this simply adds another category of mental health therapist, which we believe is greatly needed in California. With that, I'll introduce Dr. Robert Chope.
Welcome to Assembly BMP.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My name is Robert Chope. I'm a professor and the immediate past chair of the Department of Counseling at San Francisco State University. I've been a licensed marriage and family therapist since 1971 and a licensed psychologist since 1977. I'm in strong support of SB 788. Senator Weiland didn't mention this, but the fact of the matter is that California is the only state now. There are 49 other states. California is the only state that does not recognize licensed professional counselors. I know consumer protection is of utmost importance to this committee, and this measure addresses several key aspects. First, there is a mental health workforce shortage in our state, and a highly regarded study from UCSF specifically recommends that California mirror the action of others by licensing LPCs. This policy recommendation is supported by their well-documented workforce shortages in both rural and urban counties throughout the state. And because of the changing demographics in California, the study notes acute shortages in several areas where demand is growing rapidly. For example, my department at San Francisco State trains master's degree students with an expertise in gerontological counseling and rehabilitation counseling, but California is losing out on our own higher education investment by not utilizing the contributions of these other master's degree counseling tracks offered in our state universities. These are counseling tracks put in place to meet California's consumer needs. In terms of public safety, as a professor, I can tell you unequivocally that the qualifications of licensed professional counselor are on par with the requirements of the currently licensed MFT. It will take at least 2 years of education and 3,000 hours of supervised training and the passage of 3 examinations to become a professional counselor. Consumers may not know all aspects of their counselor's qualifications, but they do understand licensures, that it means standards have to be met and oversight exists. Consumers seeking the services of a counselor should be afforded the same protection as those clients of a licensed MFT or social worker. California's lack of an LPC license makes it nearly impossible. I need to emphasize this again. It's nearly impossible for departments like mine to recruit PhD faculty into our counselor education programs because they cannot practice independently as LPCs if they come from other states. In the year 2013, in order for programs like ours to remain accredited, California will need to hire faculty who have doctoral degrees from counselor education programs. California does not have a single counselor education program offering a PhD. So we are completely dependent upon out-of-state faculty, and those faculty will not come to the state because they cannot practice under an LPC. In this time when California is experiencing an extraordinary rate of job loss, the LPC is the only mental health practitioner requiring career counseling in their training. And job loss is one of the leading causes of suicide and depression. One final note, while this committee's purview does not include the fiscal aspects of the bill, I know every Assembly member is committed to advancing financially sound policy measures. SB 788 will be fully self-supporting through licensing fees, which practitioners in the field are more than willing to pay in order to have the opportunity to work under a license. Moreover, no new agency is being developed, but rather the existing Board of Behavioral Science will oversee the LPC. The BBS voted unanimously to support the bill, by the way. No new state dollars will be used to implement the legislation. Instead, the BBS Reserve Fund will be used for startup and repaid by fees. In the interest of all Californians, I urge you to pass this bill. Thank you very much, and I'm going to pass the mic to Ms. Rita Downs, who is the Director of Behavioral Health for Calaveras County. Thank you.
Great, welcome.
Thank you very much. I'll be brief. I just want to express my support from my staff as well as from the California Mental Health Counselors Association. In California, rural mental health has a very difficult time getting clinical staff. Our core services are funded through Medi-Cal, and you need licensed clinical staff to provide intakes and the treatment. We have a very hard time. We have a very high rate of vacancies for mental health clinicians. 50 California counties and 836 sites have been designated as health professional shortage areas by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services. I have right now 5 master's level staff in my department who are underemployed as case managers because they have no counselor licensure in California. They are all qualified to be licensed in any other state in the country except California, and they are the equivalent of being attorneys coming to California or graduating from a California law school and being told they could only be a paralegal. So I want to ask for your support for counselor licensure in California so that we can help the consumers of public mental health services get access to services, particularly in the rural areas. Thank you.
Thank you. Next witness.
Hi, I'm Patty Nunez. I'm the immediate past chair of the Commission on Rehab Counselor Certification, and I'm going to be really, really brief, although I had a great testimony that you guys would have loved. Really just here to really
take
just
your word
here
for it.
strongly supporting this bill and on behalf of persons with disability and returning veterans to the United States in terms of getting qualified services from qualified professionals. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much. Next witness.
We have some who would at least like to identify themselves and perhaps add a sentence to that.
Paul Riches on behalf of the Board of Behavioral Sciences here in support of the bill.
Thank you. So all other witnesses in support, I'm going to ask that you limit
I'm
your
Nancy
comment to your
Fitzgerald.
name and your organization and your position on the bill.
I am a case manager in behavioral health in Madera County, and I have been licensed for 16 years in Idaho, and I have national certifications all over the place, and I'm working as a case manager.
And you support the bill.
Oh, I support the bill.
Thank you very much.
Allison Ramey on behalf of the California Primary Care Association, representing over 800 community clinics and health centers in support.
Thank you.
Randall Hager representing the California Psychiatric Association, over 3,300 psychiatric physicians were in strong support.
Thank you.
Dr. Greg Jackson, professor of counselor education at Cal State University Northridge, strong support, and I totally support everything that Dr. Chope mentioned earlier.
Thank you.
Dean Porter, president of the California Coalition for Counselor Licensure. I'm the one that has to respond to counselors in the other 49 states wanting to come to our state. I'm particularly concerned about spouses of servicemen who have to come to California, and they're worried they can't work in our state because we have no license for them.
Thank you for your testimony.
Hi, Randall Friedman on behalf of the United States Navy. On behalf of several 100,000 service members and their families, we recognize an acute shortage and strongly support this bill for needed services.
Thank you.
Sue Zaglinski, University of San Diego, representing over 1,000 counseling student graduates who want to meet the needs in San Diego that are open positions for mental health professionals.
Thank you.
I support the bill. And
Thank
so
you.
Madam Chair, Tim Shannon, representing the California Association of Marriage and Family Therapists, over 30,000 in the state. At one point, a long time ago, we were opposed to this bill, but we have removed our opposition because the author has come such a long way with this bill. Thank you.
My name is Linda Tyson. I am the CEO of the Kiamsha Group, Healing the Soul Counseling Services. I am licensed in the state of Texas. I have my own organization. I have to utilize a licensed marriage family therapist to sign off on my documentation and paperwork. So it's like I'm continuously being supervised. I'm actually leaving, going back to Texas because I cannot find appropriate work.
Thank
and
you.
I truly, truly support the bill.
Thank you.
Judy Barrett Miller on behalf of the California Coalition for Counselor Licensure. Thank you.
Amanda Levy on behalf of the California Psychological Association. We were in opposition for many years on this bill. Thank the author for his work. We are neutral now. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other witnesses in support? Any witnesses in opposition to the bill? Mr. Weiland, is it okay if we take some questions first, or did you want to say
Absolutely.
something? Okay.
Please.
Mr. Ruskin?
Just a very brief question. First, let me congratulate you on having moved this bill to a position where there is no opposition. It's quite a feat.
It took many hours, a lot of work, and all the folks who testified, that participated that, and the other organizations made that happen.
Can you just confused on one little part, the part that deals with the treatment of couples or families? What the language confuses me. What does it intend to mean?
Well, I will give my best description of it, and I'll also call on others who may know better. But if you read the code for the licensed clinical social workers, marriage and family therapists, and then the licensed professional counselors that this bill is about, marriage and family therapists their primary work is with families and encouraging and helping individuals to work within those families, make adjustments, or entire families. I think one of the issues is that in this state, they've sort of been forced in a way because of the need to also take on other jobs, which they've done well, but the need still exists for further mental health therapists.
In the licensure?
Oh, they will have their own separate licensure. They will, each group will have its own separate licensure. They can add the professional counselor to the licensure. The Board of Behavioral Sciences, which is in support, will devise an examination that covers any area which is not already overlapping. Most are already overlapping.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions from committee members? Hearing none, I think we have a motion and a second. Would you like to close?
Ask for your aye vote.
Mr. Weiland, I serve on the Proposition 63 Oversight and Accountability Commission, and since the measure passed in 2004, we've been trying really hard to figure out ways to increase mental health workforce, and your bill does that, and I really want to thank you and congratulate you on all the hard work. So
thank you very much,
great
Madam
bill.
Chair. I appreciate that.
With that, Madam Secretary, please call the roll.
Motion is due pass to appropriation. Hayashi?
Aye.
Hayashi, aye. Emerson? Aye. Emerson, aye. Conway? Ing? Ing, aye. Hernandez? Hernandez, aye. Nava? Nilo? Nilo, aye. John Perez? Aye. John Perez, aye. Ruskin?
Aye.
Ruskin, aye. Smythe? Aye. Smythe, aye. Monin?
Aye.
Monin, aye.
9-0, your measure's out.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair, members. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Anderson. We are going to take up file item number 1AB 1506.
Good morning.
Morning.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members. You know, our IOUs are going out. They're going to have economic devastating consequences on people and their ability to do business. I've introduced AB 1506 to mitigate the damages by making the IOUs more useful. AB 1506 simply states California must accept its own IOU as payment for state fees and taxes. With me today to talk about the impact of the IOUs is Dr. Gloria Freeman, President of Staff USA.
Good morning. The passage of this bill is really important to our company because we do business with the state. We staff critical medical services for the state of California. And with the IOUs, we've been through many budget impasses, one that lasted 7 months, and we've also gotten IOUs from the state. But this bill would help us because we'd be able to pay our payroll taxes, our DMVPs, our corporate taxes, and so at least we'd be able to negotiate them somewhere. And it's a really great idea, this bill. Thank you.
Madam Chair, members, David Wolf here with the Howard Jarvis Taxpayers Association, and we also support the bill. Just in this time of IOUs, we do believe we should be doing whatever possible to keep individuals employed and keep jobs open, and we think this bill does that, and we'd ask for your support. Thank you.
Thank you.
Dana Nickel with Pete Conatine Associates, representing the Pacific Association of Building Service Contractors in support.
Thank you. Any other witnesses in support? Any opposition?
We have all these letters in support that we received in the last 24 hours.
Okay, thank you very much. Mr. Emerson, do you have a question?
Yeah, Mr. Anderson, if a corporation has an IOU from the state for, say, $10,000, yet they have an obligation to the state for $1,000, how would that work?
Well,
under your proposal,
we've made the bill as simple as possible. We want to give the controller the maximum latitude to come up with how to implement it. I didn't want to tie his hands, but right now, the intention of the bill is to allow taxpayers who want to pay their taxes to be able to say left hand, pay right hand. But many of these companies won't stay in business because they can't finance their employees and then finance the taxes and the fees in addition to it. And Gloria, if you'd like to speak to that, that'd be terrific.
Well, so part of the problem is that basically if the state doesn't pay and we get an IOU, then we're basically funding the state. So we become the funding source for the state. So in order to enable us to continue to stay in business as long as possible, the more things that we could use the IOU for, such as state payroll taxes, state corporate taxes, DMV fees, State Board of Equalization, all state bills, this would also greatly help us to be able to use that for those liabilities and debts that we have. Thank you.
Mr. Perez?
You know, the state should never be in this situation where we're issuing the IOUs. And I think everybody in this room that's a member of the Assembly worked very hard to prevent us from getting into this situation. And unfortunately, we find ourselves here anyway. And I want to compliment you on your thoughtfulness in approaching the situation, because really it is the recipients of these IOUs who are being punished for the action taken by the governor and others that have gotten us into this situation. So I want to tell you that I appreciate what you're attempting to do here, and if you take amendments, I'd like to be added as a co-author.
Yeah, absolutely. I would invite anybody to come on as a co-author. I'd love to have everybody.
Great. Any other questions from committee members? Oh, Dr. Hernandez.
Just logistically, I'm assuming it would be after the 15th of this month, because my understanding warrants prior to that, they can actually cash it. And then and I'm assuming it would be for those individuals who can't get any bank to cash those warrants. Is that correct?
Right. It would well, first of all, I would encourage them to use this for their taxes rather than cashing the warrants, because we're going to pay interest on it. So if we can receive those IOUs back quickly, we won't have to pay interest on it. It'll lower our overall debt. It'll actually be financially more sound for us. So whether they choose to take it to a bank or take it to us, at some point the banks have said, I think Friday is the last day the banks are willing to take anything, and not all banks are willing to take it. So we don't know where this is going to lead. It's uncharted, but the biggest concern is that companies. And it's not just companies. We have St. Madeline's, Sophie Center, Noah Homes, Home of Guiding Hands. We have all these nonprofits who are ill-equipped to endure this. And I was in San Diego yesterday talking with Noah's Home, and they were saying that this would be the difference of staying in business an extra 6 weeks before having to shut their doors.
Move the bill.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, I think you have support on both sides. Would you like to close, Mr. Anderson?
I want to make this as much of a bipartisan bill as possible. I really appreciate the committee stepping up this way. I know there was some confusion as to where we would be going with this, but I really appreciate all your support. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
A motion and a second. Please call the roll.
Motion is due pass to appropriation. Hayashi?
Aye.
Hayashi, aye. Emerson?
Aye.
Emerson, aye. Conway? Conway, aye. Ing? Ing, aye. Hernandez? Hernandez, aye. Nava? Nava, aye. Nilo? Nilo, I. John Perez. John Perez, I. Ruskin. Ruskin, I. Smythe. Smythe, I. Monin. Monin, I.
11-0, your measure's out.
A lot better than last time. Thank
Oh,
you.
yeah. Congratulations. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Hopefully you'll get more budget bills passed soon.
Okay. That's interesting. Dr. E. You're bringing us many bills today.
Just three.
Okay. Let's see.
When are you doing?
340.
Okay. File item number 7, SB 340.
Thank you very much,
Welcome.
Madam Chair and members. Let me just reiterate again, this is one of the best committees. Probably have a lot of fun, but please not at my expense today.
Thank you.
This is a rather important issue. What we're finding with consumers these days is that they are put at risk when oftentimes they get involved in these kinds of solicitations of one nature or the other. And what happens with a lot of individuals, a lot of consumers, is that when they respond to these initial solicitation, it turns out that hidden within the agreement is these kinds of ongoing offers where you want to subscribe to a particular product, you make your initial agreement, and then you're going to be getting these products for months upon months. And for many individuals who are either seniors or language minority, they end up having to pay an extraordinary amount of money and really not knowing what to do to stop this particular offer.
Yeah, move the bill.
And what this bill will do is to provide some consumer protection. Very simply, it basically says that we need to, in a rather clear way, identify that this is, in fact, an ongoing solicitation. Let me just thank both sides on this particular issue, on the consumer side and industry side, for working really hard to craft this particular compromise. I think with that, we don't have any opposition.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Welcome. You have witnesses in support?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Members, Pedro Murillas from CalPERG in support of the bill. We'd like to thank the author for introducing this legislation. It does provide consumers with a clear idea of what exactly they're getting when they sign up for some sort of free trial offer. So, CalPERG in support. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr.
Good
Holliver,
morning,
welcome
Richard
to
Holliver,
PMP.
Consumer Federation of California, in strong support. This is a very important consumer right-to-know measure that helps to prevent some of the more deceptive marketing practices.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Are there any witnesses in opposition to the bill? Any questions from committee members? Okay. Would you like to close?
Just urge an aye vote.
Thank you.
Motion is due pass. Hayashi?
Aye.
Hayashi, aye. Emerson? Conway? Aye. Conway, aye. Ng? Ng, aye. Hernandez? Aye. Hernandez, aye. Nava? Nava, aye. Nilo? Nilo, aye. John Perez? Aye. John Perez, aye. Ruskin? Aye. Ruskin, aye. Smythe? Monin? Aye. Monin, aye.
9-0. Your measure's out. We will now take up file item number
586.
12 or 10? 10?
58. I'm not sure what.
10. SB 586.
586. This
Yes.
is Cal Palace. Madam Chair and members, this is a bill that talks about revitalizing a community in my district. The Cow Palace, or the Bayshore area, is a rather depressed area to the point where you have senior citizens having to take 2 or 3 buses in order to get groceries. Many of their basic needs are handled by, either by public transit or by cars. Because of the depressed area, it's a high crime area, and so hopefully, if we look at selling the upper parking lot of this particular property, it will then stimulate some revitalization in that area. There was a previous bill last year that the governor vetoed, and the reason why he vetoed that was that we did put in that bill a provision of first right of refusal. We've taken that provision out, and hopefully with that, this will garner the governor's support and your support also. With that, urge an aye vote.
Great, thank you. Any witnesses in support?
Yes, Madam Chairman and members, Bill Duplessis on behalf of the City of Daly City in support.
Thank you. Any witnesses in opposition?
He's not really in opposition.
Madam Chair, members of the committee, Louis Brown on behalf of the Western Fairs Association. Apologize for not getting our letter of opposition into the committee in a timely fashion, but we've been working with the good senator here for the last 2 years on this piece of legislation. We share the same goal in actually developing that piece of the property. We just have a difference of opinion on how to get there. The Cow Palace has issued an RFP and is working with developers in the area to try to find a way to develop that portion of the property. We know this process works because we had another fair in the San Joaquin Valley go through the same process, where they, with partnership in DGS, have developed a piece of their property on a long-term lease and put a Lowe's shopping center right in downtown Merced that the community was very interested in having. And so we share the same goal. We have a different way of getting there, and for those reasons, we have to oppose the bill and ask for a no vote. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Any other witnesses in opposition? Any questions from committee members? We're going to need a motion. Oh, Mr. Perez.
Just following up on the previous witness, why is an RFP not a preferred pathway?
Well, if and I think the reason why, and I don't want to speak for Mr. Brown, but the reason why I think it's a soft oppose is that we are working with him, and we are very respectful of his particular position and the Cow Palace position. And it is in that light that our goal is to keep this vehicle moving along. And if in fact the Cow Palace effort of trying to engage a developer in signing a contract to develop that property, if in fact that happens, we will not move forward with this particular measure. But if in fact those negotiations fall apart, at least we have a vehicle. And that's the reason why I think that while we're taking different tracks on this, that they complement one another. I'm not going to be moving this particular bill forward if, in fact, the negotiations between the Cow Palace Board and a developer proves to be fruitful. But if it does not happen, then we will have to wait for another year before we get another piece of legislation, and that's why this effort and his effort complement one another.
But your bill in its current form no longer has a right of first refusal, correct?
That is correct.
So, and the reason I ask the question is because I do see the value in doing an RFP, getting to a point where you have a DDA and trying to move forward, where you've got some idea of what it is you're exactly trying to develop. My only concern is, what are the since there is no right of first refusal in your legislation, what are the controls in here that would increase the likelihood that if this property is sold, that it's actually used in its highest and best use for the benefit of the community that you're talking about in a way that an RFP would necessarily create structure around?
The just to sort of raise a point of clarification. The only difference between what Cow Palace is doing and what I am proposing is that one is a lease, ours is a sale. And we then believe that we will generate more revenue, for the state of California or for the Fair Board. So that's the only difference. Relative to our particular proposal, we are, in fact, going to have further discussion, I think, with the administration as to, what exactly, will bring the highest value. I think that this continues to be a vehicle for that eventuality. I think that in addition, Daly City has a general plan, and that general plan does in fact specify a rather large development of a mixed-use nature, and that's sort of a fallback that we will have relative to what is the best use and price for that piece of property.
Mr. Nava?
Yeah, just in looking at the time frame for this, I mean, assuming this was successful, got to the governor, and it was signed, it wouldn't take effect until January of next year. And then my guess is that all of the preparations to try to get this thing ready for sale would take additional months, that none of that would interfere with an RFP process that's ongoing. Is that correct?
That's absolutely correct. And I might also say that the Cow Palace and the developer that they've been negotiating, I think has passed, one or two deadlines already. They're extending it some further. So, it doesn't look good, but, we don't want to somehow still shut that door. But at least if that fails, we've got this vehicle so that we can, in fact, move with expeditious speed trying to revitalize that area.
Thank you.
Ms. Conway?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Senator, I just want to make sure in reading this that the proceeds from the sale of this land, if that happens, goes to the fair or back to the Cow Palace?
Within this particular bill, that is absolutely correct.
Okay, so thank you.
Move the bill.
Thank you. I know this is an important district bill for you, Mr. Yee. I'll be supporting it today. And you also said that this was the best Business and Professions Committee. So I'm going to vote for your bill today.
Well, not only that, this is the committee that people have a lot of fun. But like I said, not at my expense today, please.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Please call the roll.
Motion is due pass to appropriation. Hayashi?
Aye.
Hayashi, aye. Emerson? Conway? Aye. Conway, aye. Ng? Ng, aye. Hernandez? Hernandez, aye. Nava? Nava, aye. Nilo? Nilo, aye. John Perez? John Perez, aye. Ruskin? Ruskin, aye. Smythe? Smythe, aye. Monin? Monin, aye.
10-0. Your measure's out. We have one more item to take up by Mr. E., and that is file item number 12, SB 691.
691. Madam Chair and members, this is a rather important bill for the accountants here in the state of California. One of the overarching realities for accountants throughout the United States is that more and more states are adopting a different set of requirements to qualify as an accountant. Currently, within the state of California, we require 120 hours. Unfortunately, other states are requiring 150 hours. In addition to that, there is a proviso within the other state laws now that says that, if in fact your state has not adopted the 150, you're not substantially equivalent. And what that does is it limits the ability of accountants in the state of California to then practice to other states. In the Senate B&P committee, we've had one individual who testified that because we are not substantially equivalent, they have lost business because their practice deals with companies that have presence not only in California but also in other states of this union. So what this bill, in fact, will do is to establish the 150-hour track. In testimony on the Senate side, there's been some concern as to whether or not those individuals who are now being required to go from 120 to 150 would be negatively impacted, meaning that they somehow are going to feel that that is a profession that they cannot afford because of the additional 30 hours. We don't believe that, but I think in the spirit of cooperation, this bill does in fact preserve the 120-hour, and we will then, with that, want to also say that we are substantially equivalent. Hopefully that will be accepted by the other states. If not, then I'm sure we will be coming back and refining this bill further. So with that, urge an aye vote.
Thank you. When this is in support, and I think we have motion and second, you also have support on both sides.
Jim Gross on behalf of both the California Society of CPAs and 5 individual accounting firms throughout the state. As Senator Yee said, our goal is to have California deemed substantially equivalent as a state so that individual accountants throughout this state will have practice privileges in those other states such that they do not face a bar to representing their California-based clients. We are hopeful that the version of the bill does that, and we will continue working with both our own State Board of Accountancy and the accountants boards throughout the state to try to achieve that goal. We ask for your support.
Thank you. Any other witnesses in support? Any opposition? Hearing none, would you like to close?
Urge and I vote.
Oh, yes, Mr. Nilo.
Just wanted to get a quick word in because the CPA caucus of the Assembly, Fiona Ma and myself, are co-authors of this bill. It's an issue that I've worked on. The industry is working toward more of a national approach to common standards relative to experience, licensure, and regulation, which makes good sense given that we're in a global economy. California has to compete nationally and internationally. There are unfortunately interests that don't necessarily buy into the value of that approach, and it's been very frustrating trying to move forward. But this is a good sense measure that makes it obvious to CPAs as they're getting their license that certain ways of doing it might restrict their ability to practice throughout the country. And so it's a good bill. I will be supporting it, and I hope that doesn't hurt its chances.
Madam Chair, Bruce Allen with Cal CPA. My apologies to Senator Yee and to the committee. I was standing out talking with my back to the screen. I didn't come up here as an opponent. We are the sponsor, and we appreciate any support you could give to this legislation, and please don't withdraw your motion.
Thank you. And Mr. Nilo, Ms. Ma made me an honorary member of your caucus last week. I don't know if she told you, but I'm also a member of your caucus because so many people out there confuse Fiona Ma and myself. She's actually made me an honorary member. With that, I think this is an important bill that needs to move forward today. I'm in full support. I think you've already closed. If there's no other questions, we'll go ahead and call the roll.
Motion is due pass to appropriation. Hayashi.
Aye.
Hayashi, aye. Emerson. Conway. Aye. Conway, aye. Ng, aye. Hernandez. Hernandez, aye. Nava. Nava, aye. Nilo. Nilo, aye. John Perez. John Perez, aye. Ruskin. Ruskin, aye. Smythe. Smythe, aye. Monin. Monin, aye.
10-0.
Thank you very much. And members, I said that this was a great committee, and please enjoy the time that you're here. And thank you very much.
Oh, quit trying to butter us up, Yee.
Can I buy your cars?
I know, Mr. Cheney, you were waiting for quite some time. Would it be okay with the other senators? Oh, okay, great. Thank you. Thank you. Welcome. Thank you for waiting.
Thank you very much. Senator Negrete-McLeod graciously offered me the opportunity because we know this bill will be brief, and they are waiting for me in water. So thank you very much, Madam Chair and members. This bill would create parity between the osteopathic physicians in a program that is familiar to many of you, the Steve Thompson loan program that allows for payment of medical school tuition for those doctors who agree to serve up to 3 years in a medically underserved community. Last year, when we did that bill, a corollary bill by Assemblymember De La Torre
Move the bill.
changed the voluntary contribution for doctors to mandatory. This will give osteopathic physicians parity. Ask for your aye vote.
Great. This is a great bill. We have support on both sides, I believe. Witnesses in support.
Madam Chair, members, Tom Riley with Osteopathic Physicians and Surgeons of California is co-sponsor of the bill with the CMA. We urge your support.
Thank you.
Thank you. Teresa Stark with the CMA. Pleased to be a co-sponsor and urge your support and thank the author for her continued work on this issue. Thank you.
Thank you.
Amber Wiley with the Association of California Healthcare Districts in strong support.
Thank you. Any other witnesses in support? Any opposition? Hearing none, I believe we have motion and a second. Would you like to close?
No, thank you very much, Madam Chair. Appreciate your consideration. Ask for your aye vote.
Great. Thank you. Please call the roll.
Motion is due pass to appropriation. Hayashi.
Aye.
Hayashi, aye. Emerson. Conway. Aye. Conway, I. Ing. Ing, I. Hernandez. Hernandez, I. Nava. Nava, I. Nilo. Nilo, I. John Perez. John Perez, I. Ruskin. Ruskin, I. Smythe. Smythe, I. Morning. Morning, I.
10-0, your measure's out. Thank you very much. All right, we have Madam Chair of Senate BMP. Welcome.
Thank you.
We have, I believe, 2 measures to take up. Item number 17, SB 820.
That's correct. Madam Chair and members, SB 820 makes various changes relating to the peer review process for physicians and then to the medical board reporting process for final disciplinary actions taken by a peer review body against a physician. This bill requires a physician peer review body. Okay.
Those wishing to testify in support?
Linda Whitney, representing the Medical Board of California. Although we don't have an actual position on this bill, we did have a support position on SB 700, and much of the same language has been incorporated in this bill, and we support that.
Any opposition? Questions from the committee? Oh, got opposition.
Hi, David Vandergriff with the California Hospital Association. We do not have a position on the bill, but we do have some significant concerns with the language. The bill just came into print yesterday, and we are currently reviewing. The author has indicated that she wants to work with us to address our concerns, and we'll look forward to working with her as the bill moves forward. Thank you.
Questions by the committee? Seeing no questions, call the roll, please.
Motion is due pass to appropriation. Hayashi? Aye. Hayashi, aye. Emerson?
Aye.
Emerson, aye. Conway? Aye. Conway, aye. Ing? Aye. Ing, aye. Hernandez? Aye. Hernandez, aye. Nava?
Aye.
Nava, aye. Nilo? Aye. Nilo, aye. John Perez? Aye. John Perez, aye. Ruskin? Ruskin, aye. Smythe? Aye. Smythe, aye. Monin? Aye. Monin, aye.
11-0. Your measure's out. We have one more item.
That is correct.
821.
Yes, Madam Chair and members, SB 821 is the annual Omnibus Committee bill authored by the Business and Professions Committee. The measure consolidates a number of non-controversial provisions.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second and a question from Mr. Emerson.
Senator, you say that's non-controversial and changes, but you are adding a crime into the proposal and making a number of other, I think, somewhat controversial changes. Would you be willing to accept amendment to take those issues out? One is the fine on the practicing. It's an infraction on the professional fiduciaries. And then you have some changes with respect to the terms of the public members on the architect board, as well as some changes on the Bureau of Automotive Repair that I think.
Assemblyman Emerson, I'd like to take the amendments in approps or on the floor and continue moving the bill today if you're amenable.
Yeah, I'll do that. We'll take those amendments in, and I'll get back to you on this. Okay?
Okay.
All right. Thank you very much.
Great. Any witnesses in support? Opposition? I think we have a motion and a second. Senator, would you like to close?
Just ask for your aye vote.
Great.
Motion is due pass to appropriation. Hayashi?
Aye.
Hayashi, aye. Emerson?
Aye.
Emerson, aye. Conway? Conway, aye. Ing? Ing, aye. Hernandez? Hernandez, aye. Nava? Nava, aye. Nilo? Nilo, aye. John Perez? John Perez, aye. Ruskin? Ruskin, aye. Smythe? Smythe, aye. Monin? Monin, aye.
11-0 again.
I'd just
The
like
measure's
to
out.
say how nice to see a full complementary committee.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Flores. Did you bring a lot of witnesses with you today? No? Okay. We are going to hear file item 9, SB 550.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll be brief and give you the origins of this bill. Obviously, most of you know we've been very concerned on the Senate side about food safety. We've changed the Ag Committee's designation to food and agriculture, and the purpose for that is to recognize we've had many, many outbreaks in the nation, but particularly stemming from California, whether it's pistachios or beef or lettuce or spinach. We've had enormous amounts of outbreaks. And, Madam Chair, this came out of discussions really about at what point could we stop some contaminated food from leaving, if you will, the retail establishment. And the goal is simple. It means that when the FDA calls for food recall, that we have the ability, when we have the information, to match SKU numbers so that it is not scanned through the system. So ultimately what happens is it's stopped right at the scanner, and the person who is scanning it can tell you this is a recalled product, and we'd hope that you wouldn't buy it, but we want to let you know as of today this is recalled. In the Senate, we took some amendments that recognize that in many cases we're way ahead of the curve, that we don't quite yet have some of this information, but we do have some information. And I think the goal of the bill is to say whatever information we do have at this point in time, let's start there. And then as we proceed forward, the Obama administration just today announced new food safety rules at the national level, and I think those are going to coincide hopefully with what happens here in California. And the bill's very simple. It simply says that when we have a recall on many, many items that we're not even aware of, that and we have the information not be scanned. And let me just close by simply saying when we had the pistachio outbreak, it wasn't just pistachios. It was a whole host of products, over 5,000 products that one may not even be aware that were recalled. And this just gives consumers that one extra chance, if you will, before walking out with a contaminated product. And we would ask for an aye vote.
Thank you. Witnesses in support.
Richard Holliber, Consumer Federation of California, in support.
Thank you. Witnesses in opposition.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman and members. Carrie Askew Bailey with the California Grocers Association. I'd like to begin, first of all, by thanking the author and his staff. They have worked through several of the technical concerns we have with the bill. We're not quite there yet on technical issues, but we do plan to continue our dialogue with the author. Unfortunately, we do remain opposed, and I think ultimately, even if we get these technical issues resolved in their entirety, we'll still remain opposed to the bill. Implementation is not quite as simple as we think. Some folks may have an impression. You have to remember, in recall situations, what most often happens is you identify a recall after products have been shipped to the store, consumers have purchased them, they maybe sat in the pantry for a week or two, someone consumes the product, they get sick. They get sick enough to go to the physician. The physician identifies the illness, identifies it as a foodborne illness, and then begins the process of trying to link that illness with other illnesses from folks who potentially consumed the same product or the same type of product. So the point being, these take a very long time. We think that the best approach to food safety is to ensure that food reaching the grocery store is safe and unadulterated when it gets to us. We think there are limitations with regard to the state of California's ability to independently address that circumstance, but really that's the only way you're going to protect consumers, is to make sure that food that is manufactured and delivered to the grocery store is safe when it arrives. With regard specifically to some of the other technical issues we're working with on the bill, one of the main ones remains that there's no provision in the bill to allow us to essentially put food back into general circulation. So you could have a product that is recalled, 2 weeks later the recall has ended, and we're still working through kind of the mechanics of how we get those products back on the shelf. We, again, do appreciate the work that the author has done, but I just don't think we're quite there yet, and I think philosophically we're not sure that this is the correct approach and will really provide additional consumer safety.
Madam Chair, may I say a couple? We will absolutely take every amendment offered by the opposition, and I still think they'd be opposed. So I think it is a philosophical issue about where does food safety start. And before they leave, I think it's just important for the committee to recognize that we have taken every amendment that the opposition has wanted us to take. We continue to take amendments, and I'm not sure, why we continue to take amendments and still have opposition. Madam Chair, at the end of the day, our committee and this legislature has focused in on food safety at the field level. We have focused in on food safety at the distribution level. And this retail level is a very simple level because, quite frankly, there are stores that do this today. Kroger, others have scanning ability. They have stopped product. And quite frankly, when you do have an item such as a Cliff Bar that's on a recall list of 5,000, and you happen to stop it at a store and it prevents one person from getting sick, that's not a bad place to start. And so we'll take every amendment that the retailers want. All we're asking for is to recognize the concept of matching, when we have the information, the SKU numbers, so that one less product, one less can of baby food, one small item that someone may get sick from. And food safety isn't just be shoved off to the field, to the distribution. Food safety is everyone's responsibility, even the retail level. So if there's an ability, and let's just be honest, every time we've had a food recall, it's almost been caught at the retail level. It's been pulled from the shelf, where it's been spinach or any other item. Very rarely do we pull it at the distribution level because we have a very flawed system there. But this pushing of the responsibility or pushing of the buck, it's not our fault, it's theirs, and everyone needs to be responsible, and we're simply asking the retailers to go one step further in terms of what some of their stores are already doing. And in fact, the day we had a press conference on this bill, one of my staff members went to our local store, Safeway, and was told he couldn't buy a product because it was on the list. It was a recalled product, yet still on the shelf, but yet the scanner caught it right here in Sacramento. I think that's a valuable tool when indeed these types of recalls occur, and we would simply see this as a very simple consumer issue. Philosophically, if the retailers are opposed, I'll just say that at the beginning, rather than continue to offer amendment after amendment, just say we don't like the concept, and we can continue to debate the issues here in the legislature.
Thank you very much. Mr. Emerson, you have a question?
Yeah, Senator, not all stores have SKU numbers. Isn't that correct? So how do you deal with that issue? I think
what we'd like to do is say that those who do should use. Very simple. We'll take that amendment. Those that have the ability can. No problem.
And so what do you do with the smaller stores, say the mom and pop store? What kind of a disadvantage does that put them in this whole scheme?
I don't think it puts them at a disadvantage unless we're asking them to put in scanning, if you will, machines. And we're simply saying to those, we can only catch what we can catch. And we have to start somewhere. And if indeed the smaller stores don't have the ability, I mean, I've seen what a recall sheet looks like. It's many, 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 many products. And those folks have to pull them from the shelves. And that's the valuable thing. But if we have a scanner and it does match, and we do have a SKU number, and we're able to catch product, I wouldn't understand why we wouldn't want to allow those who have the capacity to do that. I don't think it gives them any more of a competitive advantage than the other stores.
But they all have the ability to do that.
They do. They do. And unfortunately, just as I mentioned, when someone has a Cliff Bar that was recalled and they find it in Safeway and they're only caught at the scanner, the day that we're announcing the bill tells me that those systems aren't necessarily working. And I can tell you this, when you go to a grocery store, some people pick an item and they put the item somewhere else, and in many cases those aren't picked up till later in the evening, later in the week. And if it's that one product that gets one kid sick, and I can just give you an example, when you get salmonella or E. coli, you're on dialysis for a pretty long time. This is not something you go, I'm just going to weather it. I mean, these are real human implications to folks' immune systems that we should be very diligent on, even at the retail level.
Mr. Nilo.
Thank you. For the grocers, for Ms. Bailey, given that in accordance with the last conversation that there are some grocery stores that do this currently and that it is available, could you comment on that?
Yes. Thank you, Assemblyman. We do have some stores that do something, I think, similar to what the Senator is my understanding, is looking for. You can set a scanner at a cash register to lock out a UPC for a variety of reasons. The system doesn't inform you, however, as the checker, why a product has been locked out. In this instance, the senator is seeking somehow for us to then not only tell the consumer this product is locked out, it's coming up no sale, but he's asking us to then have our individual checkers determine why and kind of go through a process to analyze on a product by product basis, okay, was this one locked out for this reason, or was this one locked out because it is subject to a recall? I mean, we understand the challenges and the concerns, and grocers, food safety is our top priority. It does us no good to feed our families food that is adulterated. We as grocers shop in these stores and feed our own families from these stores. We're also integral parts of the communities that we operate in. It does us no good to knowingly sell adulterated food products to the consumers that rely on us for their food supply. So we already take food safety as a top priority, and when any product is recalled, we remove it from the shelf. Potentially there is a time lag. That time lag is due to many different circumstances, whether they be mechanical and through technology, or whether they be the process of folks actually pulling things from the shelves. I think it's much easier said than done in the circumstance of this type of system.
From the standpoint of the last point of distribution, the retail grocery outlets, how big of a problem is the undetected sale of recalled items? Do you have any statistics or experience to?
We don't, and I mean, our association does not. We do know that there are thousands of product recalls that happen on a yearly basis. Generally, we would argue that those products have been purchased, taken home, and consumed before someone becomes sick. Stock rotation in our stores, we're beyond the days of having a big warehouse in the back where you have 3 months of canned goods sitting at the grocery store. Stock rotation in our stores on some products can be as quick as 72 hours. So we have just-in-time delivery and other mechanisms that really see products moving through our stores very quickly. And generally, when we see product recalls, they're narrow and limited to certain date ranges of manufacture, to certain plants where they were manufactured. There are limitations, so it's not often that we're pulling the entire UPC. It's more often that we're actually looking for the date of manufacture or the plant where something was manufactured.
Thank you for that. It seems to me that a measure of this sort would make a great deal of sense if there was conclusive evidence that the retailers really didn't care about the risk of recalled food products. And I know that if we buy something that just appears to be at risk and not a recalled product, you take it back to the store, there's no questions asked. That the grocery store's first and foremost defensive reputation is not to sell products that are going to make people sick. I will guarantee you that any grocer would probably tell you that's the best way to go out of business. And so if we really believe that the retail industry is irresponsible and doesn't particularly care about combating this risk, or if we don't feel that combating this risk is at the top of their priorities, then we would have to regulate them, tell them exactly what to do. But it just doesn't seem to me, in the reality of business enlightened self-interest, that is indeed a situation that exists that would call for regulation of this sort.
Madam Chair, we ought to shut down the legislature then, because we do this every single day to industries, and not particularly pointing to motive, but the reality is, just as we have a budget crisis, we're arguing accountability and making sure we utilize technology for fraud and a whole host of other issues. I think, quite frankly, I mean, this is simply giving a tool and asking the retailers to utilize a tool that they currently have to make sure that a product isn't out the door. And I can give you lots of evidence, Mr. Nilo, of many, many families who have walked out with various products, whether they be spinach, whether they be beef, whether they be pistachios, whether they be almonds. I can tell you that all of those have occurred not at the plant. Someone doesn't walk out of a plant and get sick. They occur because they walk out of a retail establishment, and they are on dialysis for quite a long time.
I recognize that.
And I think, so I don't know if statistics are ultimately the best example when you get sick and it's your grandchild or my child or, you know, someone here on the panel's child, and people wonder how they were able to walk out of a store with a product that ultimately was recalled, and yet it wasn't caught. And if technology might give us that one advantage in order to stop it at the scanner, it seems perfectly reasonable that government's first duty is to protect the public health and particularly the safety of its food supply. I think that is probably the most important function a government has, is protection of the food supply. So, and I think we're perfectly situated in government to make sure that that food supply from the ground all the way to the fork has the utmost protections anywhere we go. And I think ultimately this is one of those bills that encourages, and we've asked the retailers, we're not dictating, been asking them, you know, what amendments would you like? How much further would you like to make this bill a more workable situation? This is not one of those top-down bills. We have really, really worked with the industry. I would tell you no other bill's been like this. I mean, whether you're in any industry, asking them, how can we take what Kroger does, for example, and make it as an example for the rest of the industry? And it's a little dumbfounded that this, you know, when you ask industry to do what it does in some stores very well as an example, and to do it in stores where they have the capacity to do it, not mandate it, why we would be fighting that. I'm just not, I mean, it's just my view. I'm not quite sure why that's a problem. And we're not scapegoating the industry. Absolutely, they don't want bad food getting out of their store. But I will tell you that that is 9 times out of 10 where people get sick. They're not getting sick in the fields. They're not getting sick at the distribution center. They're getting sick because they walked out with product that was, in many cases, on the recall list, and they were not aware. And this isn't a bill that puts a civil penalty on these retailers. We could be very simple and say any store that sells, without any sort of discretion, a tainted product, that someone gets sick, it isn't the brand manufacturer that gets sued, it's the store. This isn't one of those bills either. So I would simply say this is kind of a reasonable way to get our establishments to move in the right direction.
Well, the bill doesn't request, the bill requires, so that's, I think, a mischaracterization. If the bill passes and there's a perceived enforcement problem, then the fines and punitive measures would come next. But to say that recalled products are discovered at the retail level would seem to be self-evident, because that's where the consumption is, and oftentimes that's how you're going to find out that there are products that pose risks out there, and it's not because the retailer consciously sold the product. And again, to exercise this capability is a tremendous competitive advantage in the marketplace, and sometimes we ought to perhaps rely upon that as opposed to the heavy hand of government telling the marketplace exactly what to do.
Okay, we have a number of questions. Mr. Perez, you had a question?
I have several.
Proceed.
Senator, the first question I have is, as I'm looking at the summary, it says that this applies to UPC codes where all products with that UPC code are covered by the recall. Is that correct?
Yes.
So this does speak to one of the issues that the grocers raised, which is that oftentimes you do have different lots, and so that a recall only applies to certain lots and not to other lots. Right. How do you address that in the bill? I see that reference there.
Yeah, I think we would do whatever the retailers would like us to do that make it as specific as possible, so we get down to the SKU level or whatever else they'd like to do.
I came here, quite frankly, expecting not to support this bill. And the more I've heard the discussion, the more I've gotten comfortable with the bill. I think that the technology is absolutely there. We've seen it with Kroger. You know, I've worked in some capacity with the grocery industry for many years. Every store has a scan coordinator. Do you have a single significant grocery store that would be covered by this that doesn't have somebody that acts as a scan coordinator on a regular basis in a store?
I would assume not.
Yeah. So every store has a scan coordinator who looks in, is updating information based on UPC codes, is tracking products. So it's a regular function, as I understand it, within a store. What we're talking about here is being smart about adding additional information for consumer safety at the same time. If it didn't make sense for business, I don't think we'd see the article that was passed around with respect to Kroger. Kroger's figured out how to get good press for doing something that is good public policy at the same time. I've got to tell you, I was originally prepared to vote no on it, not understanding some of the flexibilities that were built in, and quite frankly, not having heard yet a substantial problem that the bill hasn't been able to be adjusted to address. I do think, however, Senator, that there are other areas along the chain that we need to work with, because we are often dealing with specific lots. And especially when you're getting into produce, it's very hard to identify the source of produce once it's in a store. And so we do need to figure out ways to address that issue separately, because it has a devastating impact on the entire agricultural industry when a small supplier of a given produce does something that causes their product to be tainted, and then people are afraid to buy everything else that looks like it. And that's what I think the next step we need to look at is. But as I read the bill and as I hear the testimony, I want to thank you for being as flexible in your approach as you have been.
And Assembly Member, we will continue to be as flexible. So we would ask you or your office to engage and help us be as flexible as possible. We are not trying to give a prescriptive roadmap, but basically a compass that says in this direction is where we'd like to head with food safety, and we're trying to be as flexible as possible to engage in that process. So if we can continue to refine the bill is to make it in a certain direction, which is if other folks are doing it, let's try to replicate those good examples. That's really the goal of it, the bill at this point in time. We're not trying to be as prescriptive or punitive in any way.
Mr. Monning.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I want to thank Senator Flores for bringing this to our committee. I just want to make a comment representing counties that have large agricultural interests. We've been devastated by the spinach contamination, often trouble finding source points. This bill, however, as I understand it, you're using existing technology once a product has been flagged for recall, and it provides just another fail-safe to make sure that recalled product doesn't get misplaced on a shelf or not picked up in the supply room. I would think, and this is a question for the representative of the retail industry, I don't understand why the retail industry wouldn't want this to protect it against potential liability. In that case where a recalled product slips by a checkout teller because it hasn't been coded, doesn't that provoke a lawsuit against the retail industry for providing that customer with a contaminated product that can lead to all kinds of horrific medical implications and expenses? Doesn't this provide the industry just another layer of protection on top of everything else you've testified you're already doing? Wouldn't you want that red light to go up and protect your store?
We are, in response to your question about liability, we are, I am informed, always a named plaintiff in any one of these lawsuits, and it's up to our store to prove in an individual case to a judge and potentially a jury that it was not our, fault, if you will, that adulterated food reached the consumer. We don't see that changing at all under this bill. We don't see that getting better under this bill.
No, but you get, sorry to interrupt, but you give yourself an evidentiary leg up if you had this tracking system and somebody affected, a consumer tries to sue one of your client's stores. One of the pieces you would bring into court is, well, we had this, it didn't show up on our URL system, our scanner. That would be evidence in favor of the store of somebody maybe being misguided in where they're directing their lawsuit.
I think the challenge becomes you then have to try to make a determination of whether someone purchased the product a week before the recall was announced, if someone purchased the product a week after, you get into those sorts of determinations that we don't necessarily assess are actually going to be any easier than the determinations we have to make today over whether we sold the product knowing it had already been
Yeah, I understand what you're saying. I still think the scanner provides you protection with a date, and if the recall happened a day after the sale and you put in the data into your scanner the day after the sale, that person comes back because it was contaminated, it was before your store was alerted to it, you have a piece of evidence. The sales receipt is the day before we received notice of the recall, didn't show up on our scanner. As soon as it did, it went onto our scanner and we pulled them off the shelf, and no other consumer. I won't belabor this, but I appreciate the concerns you're trying to address, but I thank the author also for bringing this forward. Thank you.
Mr. Emerson.
The products, Senator, that you mentioned on spinach and those types of things don't have UPC codes on them. So how all the examples you gave where contamination can come into this process, that technology wouldn't work whatsoever. And so, plus the other question you said, well, certain lots may be contaminated and not others. I don't believe that technology includes the lot number on that product. It just has a product code. So I don't see the necessity for this bill. I believe that if they have this technology available, the stores, that they could use that as just another way to talk to find out about recalled products. But I can't support the bill in its present form at this time.
Mr. Ruskin, do you have a question?
No, just a comment in terms of the liability of stores. I think that even the fact that some stores are doing, like Kroger, are doing it, may add to the liability of stores who do not, because in court it can be pointed out that some stores have taken greater precaution and feasible precaution than others. So I think that actually adds to perhaps the liability of stores who do not take that precaution when others have.
Okay. If we don't have any other questions, we're going to need a motion on the bill. I think this is an important bill, and California has been focus of many recall products. This is a one step forward, and if we do have the technology, I think this is definitely the right way to go. I'd like to support this bill today, and I know that Mr. Flores, you will continue to work with the Grocers Association. So thank you for bringing the bill. I need a motion, please. Thank you.
Motion is due pass as amended. Hayashi.
I apologize. You have amendments that you need
Take
to.
the amendments on page 4.
Okay. Thank you.
Hayashi. Hayashi, aye. Emerson.
No.
Emerson, no. Conway. Ing. Ing, aye. Hernandez. Hernandez, aye. Nava. Nava, aye. Nilo. Nilo, no. John Perez. Ruskin. Ruskin, aye. Smythe. Smythe, no. Monin. Monin, aye.
6-3, your measure's out.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Mr. Huff, thank you for waiting. File item number 3, SB 136. You may open on your measure.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Well, to put this in terms you can understand, this is a bill that takes care of some state properties we have on the shelf that have been recalled. We're looking for a legal way to dispose of them. And there are no UPC codes, but we do know where they are. Senate Bill 136 is the annual DGS bill for management of surplus state property. The bill is necessary to dispose of these 3 excess properties. The existing law requires all state agencies to annually review their proprietary state lands to determine if any lands are in excess of their needs and report this information to the DGS. In turn, DGS is required to annually report to the legislature the land declared excess and request legislative authorization to dispose of land by sale or otherwise. and that is this bill. I have Melanie Perron with the Department of General Services to testify in support of the bill.
Just to piggyback on the senator's comments, we do require legislative authorization to
the impression that that developmental center is still active and performs functions and is providing services. How does this bill address that?
There is still an outpatient facility there, but there is members from DDS here in the audience who can come up and speak to the specific programmatic functions that are still taking place at that facility, and they can come up and answer your questions about that.
Okay. If they're here, they probably should.
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the committee. I'm Julia Mullen, Deputy Director with the Department of Developmental Services. The department is operating an outpatient clinic at Agnews Developmental Center. It is a transitional clinic. It was authorized in 2007 in order to ensure that the health and dental needs of Agnews residents were met while they were transitioned into the community. Since the time that that bill passed, each of the regional centers in that area have been provided funding to staff a dental coordinator at each regional center and a healthcare consultant at each regional center. Also, through collaboration with Department of Healthcare Services and 3 of the local health plans, special need health plans were established for Agnews residents. Over time, the use of the clinic, because of these efforts, has decreased and continues to decrease. The department has the ability to continue operating the clinic until we no longer control the property. In our conversations with Department of Healthcare Services, the earliest time at which we believe that the property would transition for potential sale is December of 2010. And by that time, through the continued efforts, we believe that all of the dental and health care needs of former Agnews residents would be met in the community.
So how many patients are you seeing at Agnews now in the way that you just described?
Yeah. In June, there were 109 visits to the Agnews clinic. The vast majority of those visits were for dental services. Approximately 1/3 of those visits were for former Agnews residents, the remainder for other regional center community consumers.
And do you have any indication that the patients have sort of understand that there's these other places for them to go get their help?
Yes, and what we've seen is that over time the use of the clinic has decreased as the regional centers have been able to establish relationships with their special need plans in the community.
Thank you.
Any other questions from committee members? Hearing none. Mr. Huff, would you like to close?
Ask for your aye vote.
Thank you. We have a motion? We do. Thank you.
Motion is due pass to appropriation. Hayashi.
Aye.
Hayashi, aye. Emerson. Conway. Ng. Ng, aye. Hernandez. Hernandez, aye. Nava. Nilo. Nilo, aye. John Perez. Ruskin. Ruskin, aye. Smythe. Smythe, aye. Monin. Monin, aye.
7-0, your measure's out.
Thank you very much,
Thank
Madam
you.
Chair and members.
While we're waiting for other authors, I'd like to take up consent calendar. We have 2 items on consent calendar today. File number 4, SB 178 and SB 256.
So moved. Second.
Thank you.
Hayashi.
Aye.
Hayashi, aye. Emerson. Conway. Ng. Ng, aye. Hernandez. Hernandez, I. Nava. Nava, I. Nilo. Nilo, I. John Perez. Ruskin. Ruskin, I. Smythe. Smythe, I. Monin. Monin, I.
8-0. We adopted consent calendar. Do we have any more authors? Welcome back.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
You're here to present file item number 13, SB 726.
Thank you, Madam Chair and Assembly members. I appreciate the courtesy extended in allowing the bill to be heard yet another day, that being today. There have been 3 bills this session that deal with the issue of employment of physicians. My measure is, I would say, the most narrow of the 3 because in its current form, it would only apply to special districts, hospital districts, providing the same provision of current law that is available to other government hospitals. We're not talking clinics. We're not talking about other health facilities, only hospitals, and it applies only to district hospitals. It has a requirement within the bill, an amendment that I took earlier, that would require the hospital to have demonstrated a good faith effort to employ physicians prior to having this option, this ability to directly hire physicians. It's narrowly crafted. Assemblymember, Senator, dear friend Chesbrough, had another bill that passed this committee that was broader, and I know that we're interested in solving the problem, and so that's why he's here with me today and others. So thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Mr. Chesbrough, would you like to
Madam Chair, I would like to
comment?
speak if you'd allow me to.
Please.
Thank you. Well, this is hopefully setting a good example for others in terms of the idea of being more interested in solving a problem than whose name is at the top on the bill. I want to thank the chair for putting this bill over last week so that we had an opportunity to work together to reach a compromise agreement. Without the chair's efforts, this compromise would not have been possible. Senator Ashburn understands that without taking these amendments in the Health Committee that he is prepared to offer, this bill will not get the necessary votes to pass this committee, I don't believe. He has been very gracious in agreeing that in Health Committee he will take out the provisions of his bill, which I believe would narrow and limit the effectiveness of the pilot, as well as eliminate access to specialists in these underserved areas. So I will be coming on to this bill as principal co-author, and I urge all of you to support his bill.
I'll move the bill.
Witnesses in support.
Madam Chair and members, Peter Gamby on behalf of the Association of California Healthcare Districts. Our association has been working on this issue since 2003. Our member districts operate public hospitals and other healthcare facilities, primarily in underserved areas throughout the state of California, where physician recruitment has become very, very difficult due to the high concentration of Medi-Cal patients. That problem is about to get much, much worse as the state budget is very likely going to take substantial cuts in both Healthy Families and Medi-Cal. We urge your support on this of this measure, and we ask for your vote.
Thank you.
Madam Chair and members, Barbara Glazer with the California Hospital Association. We also urge your support for SB 726 today. That will allow us additional time to continue working on the bill. It's moving in a direction that we think will really help our rural hospitals. As the previous testifiers said, our rural hospitals are having a real struggle recruiting physicians. They oftentimes ask to be hired, and we'd like to be able to give them that option. It would be strictly voluntary, and we urge your support of this bill.
Thank you. Any other witnesses in support?
Hello, Madam Chair, members. Dustin Corker on behalf of the California Medical Association, and I guess I'm presenting in a little bit of an in-between position. We are in support of the bill as currently drafted. We reached an agreement with Senator Ashburn in the Senate on the bill as it is currently drafted. I'm a little concerned to hear discussion about amendments that are, I guess, being taken in the next committee, or at least contemplated to be taken in the next committee, because we did reach an agreement, as I said, on the bill as drafted. The contemplation, as I presume is the case about what might happen should the bill leave this committee, is that the author is contemplating taking out one of the very key provisions that enabled it to get out of the Senate committee in the first place. Had that agreement not been reached, the bill would have failed in the Senate and would not have made it to this committee. I still try and hold some hope that when we do reach that level of agreement, and it's agreed to by the chair of the committee over in that House and other members, that we would sustain that and hold that. I think Assemblymember Chesbro raised the point, and I do think it's gallant that he certainly put his name forward on this after his bill failed passage over in the other House. He was the author of the original pilot program, and I think there's a lot of merit to that pilot program and attempts to try and rectify some of the shortcomings of that program. But to try and on the fly change commitments that were made, I find troubling. So again, CMA is in support of the bill as drafted.
Thank you. Any other witnesses in support?
Madam Chairwoman and members of the committee, Willie Pelote, representing the American Federation of State, County, and Municipal Employees. We're in strong support of the bill. We were part of the work group on the Senate side on SB 726. We did not agree to the amendments or the commitment that those are saying that were made. We see that there's time, hopefully, for the legislature to address a systemic problem, and everything is fluid. And we're trying to work out some amendments that will absolutely address the problem in each of your districts in the state of California, with those who are going without health care insurance and those who regular physicians will not see, that we need to address this problem head on. And we're asking for you to work with us today and with both of the authors that we're looking at. The American Federation bill with Assemblyman Swanson, it will be heard in the Senate side on Monday. It has not been killed, but we believe clearly that we have the vehicle here that can address the problem as we move forward, to make sure that we have a vehicle that we can put on the governor's desk that will then bring to a long-waited communities throughout the state of California of both children as well as adults that have been going without health care, and have physicians in place that will see them because 90% or better of them are Medi-Cal patients. The reimbursement rates are very low, and we want physicians who will see them and not be concerned about the bottom line, and the best way to do that is through the healthcare districts, and then we can address this problem head on. We ask for your strong support of this to move forward with Senator Ashburn's bill. And believe me that we're going to do the right thing when it comes to the legislature joining in as a partner to really look at these communities and bring to these communities finally health care that they can do that is preventive health care and address their problem. We ask for your strong support of the bill.
Any other witnesses in support? The opposition?
David Quackenbush, Central Valley Health Network, representing 125 federally qualified health center sites in 21 counties. Admittedly, I am a little confused. We were here to listen to Senator Ashburn's bill, and now it's morphing into something that we're not really sure what it is. I guess one interesting point is all of the parties involved in all three bills that deal with the same issue are present in the room, so I guess it's good that they're talking to each other. However, we don't know what amendments are, or we don't know what this bill would look like. I would like to remind the committee that community health centers are frontline preventive providers. As earlier witnesses testified, we are the ones that provide the primary care. 600,000 low-income individuals come into our health centers on an annual basis, receiving 2.5 million encounters. Out of that 600,000 patients, 50% are Medi-Cal and 35% are uninsured. I want to make sure we stay on target. Hospitals don't provide that preventive primary care. Community health centers do. Community health centers do. Hospitals don't provide that preventive primary care. Community health centers do. Federally qualified health centers do. So I really would like to stay on point. This bill, again, does not create one new doctor. What it does is it gives hospitals the ability to hire them directly and take them away from providing the preventive primary care. And the earlier comments about this bill narrowing, this bill in itself will allow 176 hospitals, as written in the analysis, to hire doctors directly. We don't see that as a narrowing. So again, this bill doesn't provide one new doctor. This actually will take primary care doctors out of primary care settings where community health centers and hospitals agree that preventive primary care should be taking place. And it is a little troubling that this bill is being spoken about under the umbrella of providing that primary care to low-income families throughout the state, which is where community health centers come in and are a vital part of the healthcare system. So again, another reminder, this bill didn't pass the committee last year. Assemblyman Chesborough's bill did not get out of the Senate committee. Last week, the fine chairwoman spoke on the trouble this bill was going to get out of this committee. None of that has changed. I would really encourage and appreciate a no vote on this bill.
Thank you. Any other witnesses in opposition? And I know there's a lot of confusion here. I want to address some of your concerns. We are not voting on anything else except the bill in front of you, which is authored by Senator Ashburn. It's currently drafted. There are no amendments. We're not taking any amendments. The bill will not be amended, and we are voting on Mr. Ashburn's bill. And I hope that clarifies things. I think that there are other witnesses in support of Mr. Chesborough's bill, but we're not taking that up today. And so with that, if there's I don't know if members have questions, but we are ready to vote on this bill. Mr. Perez.
So I'm assuming from the chair that we're voting on the bill as it came to us last week. There's no change from last week to this week.
Correct. We are
So
not. We're not voting on anything else other than Mr. Ashburn's bill.
So I have several FQHCs in my district. I am a fan of the ability of FQHCs to be able to directly employ. It is one of the principal ways in which people in my district access primary health care. My concern is whether or not this bill allows for the displacement of docs from FQHCs to go work in another place. So whether this creates a pathway for a net loss of docs for the FQHCs. So anybody who'd like to answer that, I'd be happy to hear.
Well, I don't believe that there's anything in the bill that would cause that to occur. That is not the position taken by the advocate on behalf of the federally qualified health centers, and he has suggested amendments that would prevent displacement of those physicians from the clinics to the hospitals. We are not amending the bill here today, but I am certainly open to that discussion, because my goal would be to attract to California more physicians from across the country, so that you have more in your community and we have more doctors available in our community. And if they are employed by health clinics, that's better health care. If they are employed directly by district hospitals, that's better health care. Those are the goals that bring me to this issue. I know those are the goals of Assemblymember Chesbro in our joint efforts here. And it's as simple as that. But we are not amending, and that's why I think to the CMA, these issues are still fluid. Issues are being raised. The business of the legislature is amending bills to make them better. I'm only asking you to vote on this bill as it currently is drafted with no amendments. We are going to take into consideration all the things that have been said here as we move to the Health Committee.
Senator, here's my only concern about that. And I understand that that's the business, and I've been frustrated as I've had to amend some of my bills every time they've been taken up for consideration someplace to move them forward. I understand that, but I think we also as a policy committee have an obligation to evaluate what we think is the product that's going to be moving forward. And so what causes me some discomfort is hearing multiple directions of where this gets amended and greenlighting something without having the ability to look at it in the form that it's going to go to the floor, or in substantially similar form to what it's likely to go to the floor on. And so from my position as a member of this committee, I would feel much more comfortable knowing that I was voting on something that had a high likelihood of looking like the final product that we're looking to move to the floor. Without that, I would feel much more comfortable making this a two-year bill, so that we actually had the ability as a committee to evaluate the policy. So that's where I'm at this moment. I'm hoping to hear testimony that convinces me one way or the other.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
May I? As a longtime champion, as you are, of community clinics, I would not be here offering my support if I didn't believe that the problem that the witness has brought up was not going to be taken care of. So I have a great deal of confidence that that will be the case. However, I certainly think that the committee's ongoing monitoring of the status of the bill would be very important under the circumstances.
Peter Gamby on behalf of the
Excuse
association.
me, we have a question from Mr. Monning. Go ahead, please.
Yes. I might point out that both Assemblyman Chesbro and Assemblyman Swanson have agreed to amendments in their legislation to directly take care of the problem that was pointed out by the opponent in terms of taking or competing or pilfering physicians from existing FQHCs.
You know, we can't have this sort of thing happen here where we brief the committee members thinking we're going to hear one bill and have witnesses and other potential future co-authors come in and try to present a bill that could be. And so this is why people are very confused. This is not the way that I would prefer to have this committee hear bills. And I would like to have Mr. Monning ask his question. There are a number of other members wanting to ask questions, and I will clarify once again for everyone what we're voting on and what we're doing. And so with that, I'm going to have Mr. Monning ask his question, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The objective, as I understand it from the author and from Mr. Chesbro, is to expand options for more doctors to provide primary care because of a reform allowing hospitals to do direct employment. I have to confess my ignorance exactly how that manifests into more recruitment opportunities. I know my wife is a primary care physician. She works in a federally qualified clinic. They're dependent on Medi-Cal support. They saw 2,800 patients last month, 4 doctors. There's a crisis. There are not private doctors who will take the Medi-Cal reimbursement because the repayment is too low. So I don't know that today's the time to figure out exactly how all this is to come together. I'm sensitive to those who are here raising concerns. My hope is that, I guess my question would be for you, Senator, if this bill passes as it came to us from the Senate, what's the next stop, and what's your commitment to the engagement of the concerns raised by the community clinics and CMA?
Thank you for the question. It's the question on my mind, too. My request is to pass the bill as it is today. You understand the dilemma I'm in, because we have the clinic representatives saying, please amend the bill. We have CMA saying, don't amend the bill, because you took amendments in the Senate Health Committee. So I'm here to say the bill is as it is. We do not intend to take physicians away from the clinics, but the language that the advocate would like in order to deal with that more directly is not in the bill. So I can't say to you I'm not going to continue working on the bill, but I'm very sensitive to trying to craft something that works to do what we have all said we want to do, which is to provide more physicians to more localities in California.
If I might respond to that, and thank you, Mr. Monning, for raising the point. And I think probably the clinic should respond as well. My objection is not to what the clinics are objecting to. I mean, we are in lockstep with the clinics on this issue. If there was something that they sought, certainly we would sit down in good faith and consider that. Is not our objection in terms of future amendments. In fact, I think the point is very clear, and you raised it properly. The FQHCs do provide preventative health care. Preventative health care is provided by FQHCs and by private physicians. Hospitals do not do that. That's not how they're structured. That's not what they're to provide. They don't take care of earaches and stuffy noses. The clinics provide those services. Docs provide those clinics. When you hire somebody into a hospital, their job is to admit. Their job is to do other things other than provide those services. So we are not here standing in the way of any protections that would be extended to the FQHCs. In fact, we've supported for a long time the services that the FQHCs provide. And certainly if they came to us and sought something and needed something, we would certainly support that. So that is not at all our objection.
And there's some more confusion. The Central Valley Health Network has never proposed any amendments, have never asked for any amendments, and have been consistently opposed to this bill and the other two bills. And our single most important position is this will absolutely lead to a net loss of providers in our health centers.
Madam Chair, if I might, the point that was made that our district hospitals don't provide preventative care or primary care, our hospitals operate dozens of primary care rural health clinics that are affiliated and attached to those hospitals. We provide extensive primary care and preventative care. The problem we have is that we have clinics that we cannot staff, that are modern state-of-the-art clinics that are standing empty because we cannot find doctors who are willing to come to work for us. Those who do come seeking positions in our facilities want one thing. They want a job. They want the security of a paycheck and defined benefits and defined hours. And they're not interested in trying to open up a small business in communities that are largely Medi-Cal-based and uninsured.
Dr. Hernandez.
Yes. My understanding is that federally qualified health clinics or health centers have the ability to hire a physician. And obviously I would not advocate that if this were to occur or support any kind of pilferage of those individuals into another entity. So I'm assuming that you're not advocating that either. But on the flip side, kind of dovetailing what Mr. Pelote had said, that we also have rural areas or communities of colors that have hospitals that don't have or perhaps don't have the appropriate number of even federally qualified health clinics, and there's an access problem. And that access problem has to be addressed. It has to be addressed to be able to get providers to be able to provide that care for the neediest individuals. What I'm going to be voting on is this bill today, and I understand my colleague, Assemblymember Perez, may have some concerns, but to address those concerns, we see that every day in the legislature. When there's amendments made, things come back in concurrence, and if that were the case, If I feel uncomfortable if this bill were to come back in a different form, I have the ability to readdress that on the assembly floor or in the form of concurrence. So I think what we should do is just vote on the bill in chief today for the merits of the bill, and then if it should come back in another format, then we can address that as legislators and take those actions at a later time.
Mr. Ng, you have a question?
I was just going to say that this has been a kind of wild and woolly ride here. I basically understand, Madam Chair, that we are going to be voting. I think the motion will be on the bill as is, with no amendments. Is that correct?
That's correct.
That's the recommended motion. I can support that. I think what we need to do is to have a lot of dialogue after this if it's going to be amended, because I will certainly reserve the right to look at the bill differently if it should be differently when it reaches the floor or on a concurrence. So that's what my position will be, and that's how I'll vote today.
Senator Ashburn, would you be willing, if this bill is changed in subsequent committee, would you be willing to bring it back to this committee so we can have a discussion? You would commit to that? All right. Thank you. Yeah.
Do it off the floor. You have to waive the rules.
As is, yeah. As it is before us. Madam Chair, the question was asked by Mr. Emerson with respect to amendments taken following this committee and having the bill come back here. I'm agreeable with that, but acknowledged, as we all would, that there are timing issues and rule waiver requirements, and so I would ask if that in fact occurs. I have no problem making the commitment as long as the process provides for it. And a fine motion.
Call a question.
I'm wondering, realizing the difficulty in securing this, whether or not we request that the bill return to this committee if it's amended elsewhere.
Yeah, I've just been informed that we cannot bring our bill back if it's amended in another policy committee. It can't come back here.
Then it goes to the floor.
Right. So.
If it's amended on the floor, we can talk about it.
Okay. Mr. Ashburn.
Yes, Madam Chair.
So we have a motion and a second on your bill as currently drafted, and I'm going to support your measure in its current form. I also serve on the Assembly Health Committee, so I will look forward to seeing you there as well. I would like to say that I did support Mr. Chesborough's bill when it was in BMP. I supported it in health. I'm very supportive of the two authors working together, but as I've shared with both authors, that I do not appreciate authors coming to this committee trying to propose amendments that we have not seen or try to project future actions that might be taken up somewhere else, and try to get the bill out and lobbying committee members while we're meeting. And so if you could work with us in the future to bring civility, and so that if you are negotiating outside of this hearing with CMA or CHA, you're also able to keep those commitments, because I'm not really sure what everybody's negotiating at this moment other than what we're voting on. So, and I think there's a lot of confusion here. I think we are ready to support your bill today, and I will support your bill today, but I will not be supporting any other amendments to your bill in Assembly Health. So.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And if I may just respond and close, it was not my intention to cause any confusion here today. I asked the courtesy to bring my bill back today, and that was granted very graciously by the chair. In the meantime, Assemblymember Chesbro and I have had a conversation about our mutual interest in having more physicians and the idea of employing them. He offered to join with me in our effort. And so that's why we presented it as we did, not to create confusion, not to imply. We've been specifically asked by CMA not to change the bill. We've been specifically asked by a representative of the clinics to kill the bill. And I misspoke when I said, well, they wanted amended. Apparently, it can't be amended in that way to satisfy their concern. So, I mean, we all face this dilemma of those who would like to move our efforts in a particular direction. But I'm here with the bill exactly as it was presented last week to ask for your favorable consideration, and I appreciate the courtesy.
Okay, so Mr. Ashburn, are you, just clarify one thing for me, are you saying you are going to amend the bill in health or you're not going to amend it? I guess that's what I need to hear before I vote.
No matter what I say, it is with great peril.
Welcome to the life of a legislator.
But you know, Madam Chair, my goal is to make you happy, and so
Get out the shovel.
Thank you. I will definitely support your bill now, and we have a motion and a second. Let's call the roll.
May I add one more, at my peril, add one more last little point, and that is I would encourage you to notice that the statewide organization that represents the clinic, CPCA, is not sitting at this table testifying against this bill.
And, Madam Chair, for clarification purposes, if I amend in Health Committee to add Assemblymember Chesbro as a principal co, would that be objectionable to the committee? I mean, that's what we've talked about, is how we join forces here in a bipartisan effort. Because, okay. See, that's the peril in giving absolutes.
Okay, I think
Madam Chair.
I think you have confused more members with that statement. Mr. Perez.
I'm sorry to do this, but Mr. Chesbro made a statement, and I just need to make sure. You said CPCA is not here in opposition. CPCA does represent the FQHCs in my district. They are listed as opposition. Are you saying they're not opposed, or are you just saying they're not in the room?
Well, I apologize. I didn't realize that they were listed as opposition, and the chair definitely doesn't want me to talk about the other bills or the language that took care of.
I like the other bills.
Yeah.
Please call the roll.
Motion is due pass to health. Hayashi.
Aye.
Hayashi, aye. Emerson.
Aye.
Emerson, aye. Conway. Conway, aye. Ng. Ng, aye. Hernandez. Hernandez, aye. Nava. Nava, aye. Nilo. Nilo, aye. John Perez. Ruskin. Ruskin, aye. Smythe. Smythe, aye. Monin. Monin, aye.
10-0, your measure's out.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair and Assembly members. Appreciate it.
Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, since we only have one author, can we take, of his bills, can we take 16 first?
Certainly.
Oh, okay. We have item number 2 on call, SB 36. Please call the absent members.
Conway. Aye. Conway, aye. Ing. Ing, aye. Hernandez. Hernandez, aye. Nava. Nava, aye. Nilo.
This is the Calderon bill?
Nilo, aye. Smythe. Smythe, aye. Measures out. 11 to 0.
Of course. Okay, Mr. Leno, you ready for us? We have 2 items to take up today. We will go ahead and take up your item number 16, SB 802. We did hear your bill last week, so this is vote only, members. Thank you. We want to thank Senator Leno for working with us and trying to fix the bill, and would like to thank the sponsor and committee members for allowing us to take this up today instead of last week. I think this is an important bill. I'm recommending an aye. We have a motion and a second. Mr. Leno, would you like to? Oh, we don't have a second. Thank you, Mr. Ruskin. Mr. Leno, would you like to say anything? We're ready to move this bill out.
I want to thank the chair and vice chair for their leadership in allowing us a week to work out some of the differences of opinion, and I ask for your aye vote.
Thank you.
We're taking up the home furnishing bill this
No, we're actually going to adjourn after this bill.
Motion is due pass to appropriation. Hayashi?
Aye.
Hayashi, aye. Emerson?
Aye.
Emerson, aye. Conway? Conway, aye. Ing? Ing, aye. Hernandez? Hernandez, aye. Nava? Nava, aye. Nilo? Nilo, aye. John Perez? Ruskin? Ruskin, aye. Smythe? Marnin? Marnin, aye. 9-0.
920. That measures out. The final item of the day, file item number 14, SB 772. Of course.
Okay, great.
This was, I think,
Yes, thanks. Great, wonderful. Okay, thank you.
Everything in there is available.
Got it, okay. Okay, that's okay. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair, committee members, for allowing me to present SB 772. And I just want to say from the outset that this bill has been very heavily lobbied, and both sides will have their opportunity to make their case. But from the tenor and the tone of the oppositional lobby, there has been, I think, an unnecessary attempt, and I hope I have everyone's attention, an attempt to really put a fear of fire danger if we were to move forward with this bill. I think you all know me well enough that I would never conceivably author a bill that would promote fire risk or fire danger. I am well aware of the seriousness of the subject. With that said, I want to frame this debate as it should be framed. We're talking about a very limited number of products to be exempted from Technical Bulletin 117, which was created by this state about 30 years ago with the good intent of protecting the populace from unnecessary fire risk and danger. It has not been revisited in over 30 years. We do know more about the chemicals that are used to comply with Technical Bulletin 117. Let me also just digress briefly to say that we're the only state in the country that has such a fire safety standard, this resistance to a flame for 12 seconds, the only state in the country and the only country in the world that has such a standard. And I will come back to how effective that has been in just a moment. So the bill takes a very limited number of products that impact our babies and toddlers and children, the products they're having the most daily and intimate contact with. That, and this is the basis and the foundation of why I'm here, that are not fire risks. And that's not my opinion. That is the opinion of the federal government. I have a letter here for pass out if you like from the United States Consumer Product Safety Commission, which states that the Commission has the authority to regulate hazards to children under the Federal Hazardous Substances Act and the authority to regulate fire risks associated with interior furnishings under the Flammable Fabrics Act. And this is the U.S. Consumer Product Safety Commission statement in a letter to me on October 14th of last year relative to this bill. To date, the Commission has not made such a determination of fire risk with respect to the risk of fire for the juvenile products you have mentioned. We're talking about, as referred to in the analysis, we're talking about cribs and strollers and backpacks. Again, items that children have the most daily and intimate contact with. The federal government has determined no fire risk. In fact, I have another handout for you which lists a detailed review of available federal fire injury data. And this is from the U.S. Consumer Product Safety Commission's National Electronic Injury Surveillance System. So they track all of these items over a 4-year period, 2003 to 2007. They include 7,676 records of incidents for the following baby and juvenile products. And it lists 1,500, 1,300, 1,500 for all of these different products: babies' blankets, crib mattresses, cribs, baby carriages, baby carries, car seats for infants, baby strollers, and such. For the years 2005, 6, and 7, 0 incidences of fire involvement were reported for the juvenile products listed. Actually, none. And that's why they felt secure enough to state that these products were not fire risks. In summary, 5 consecutive years worth of federal data demonstrate that juvenile products listed above pose no proven risk of fire or even any historical involvement in fires. These facts make clear that California is mandating the use of fire retardant chemicals for a fire safety risk that does not exist. Now, for those of us in the room who believe that government overregulates industry, I want to make the point that this is a deregulation bill. I, of course, am a firm believer that when there is risk to the populace, that is when government should step in and require a fire safety standard. But when products are deemed by the federal government not to be fire risks, then the question is, why would we mandate industry to pour these chemicals into these products when there's no reason to? And I had about 5 Republican senators support this bill. One of them asked me, I thought, what was a very telling question. Senator Leno, if your bill becomes law, will the manufacturers of these products, and I have a letter of support from the Juvenile Products Manufacturers Association in support of the bill. So the manufacturers of the products we want to exempt from the technical bulletin in support of the bill. Senator asked me, if your bill becomes law, can these manufacturers still pour the chemicals into their products should they choose? The answer is yes. And if they choose not to, will they be able to choose not to? And the answer is yes. So the question is, why are we, the government, forcing the manufacturers of these products to pour in, which my witness will substantiate, are very dangerous chemicals? And this is not conjecture, this is proven fact, peer-reviewed fact. Why would we impose this upon them? It drives up the cost of these products. It drives up the cost to consumers. Why would we force them? Let the market have its ability to decide for itself. And I know as a consumer myself, if I were going shopping for a gift for an infant or a child, and I'd like the choice to choose one that has these chemicals in it because I'm overly sensitive, and I want to ignore the fact that the federal government has deemed these products not to be a fire risk. Or I might be a consumer who says, you know, I'm really concerned about these chemicals. I would like to have the option to buy a product that doesn't have them in it. Let the consumer have that option, and let the manufacturer have that option as well. So this is a deregulation bill, and for products specifically to be deemed non-fire risk. Now we took the bill a step further. Should the Bureau of Home Furnishings, which has jurisdiction over Technical Bulletin 117, at any time ever determine this small group of products to be, or any one of these products within the group, to be a fire risk, we give the authority to the Bureau of Home Furnishings to remove it from the exemption and continue to regulate it as they're regulated today. So there's no risk here whatsoever. With regard to our fire safety standard, as I said, it's over 30 years old. We haven't reviewed it since. We know more today than we did then. But nonetheless, likely you will hear from the opposition how successful it has been because it has reduced California's fire-related deaths significantly. And we have a comparison 1980 to 1984 to 1995 and 1999. And this is data from the National Fire Protection Association, and yes, California's fire-related deaths are down 32%. But Illinois, which does not have our fire safety standard, is down further, 39%. New York, which does not have our fire safety standard, is down further, 40%. Ohio, 39%. Significantly, upwards of 20% greater drop in fire-related deaths in states which don't have our fire safety standard. So, of course, the question is, well, if it wasn't our fire safety standard which brought down these fire-related deaths, what did? Clearly, important changes to state law across the country requiring fire sprinklers, requiring smoke detectors, requiring self-extinguishing cigarettes. So, again, I'm not suggesting that we do anything to the fire safety standard, keep it intact. This bill does not ban any chemical. Let me repeat, it doesn't ban any chemical. It just takes government out of a regulation situation where it's not necessary. If the Bureau of Home Furnishings ever deems it to be necessary again, well enough, they'll be able to re-regulate. Now, I'm going to introduce my witnesses. One is going to focus on the peer-reviewed science that links these very chemicals, which I should point out, the federal government took out of children's sleepwear because of their great risk to children's health 30 years ago. We took these chemicals out of children's sleepwear 30 years ago because of their great risk. This is not conjecture. The science is old. But the same chemicals are now being poured into these other infant products that are not deemed to be fire risks. And the links between fire retardant exposure are to cancer, birth defects, reproductive, neurological problems, thyroid disorders, learning disabilities, attention deficit disorder. Now, I'm not suggesting this is fact, but we all know that over the past 30 years or so, rates of autism have increased from 1 in 1,600 to 1 in about 160. We have something called the precautionary principle, and I would just ask, this is not the foundation of my argument here, but I would ask, at what point would we want to take action, especially when we're talking about non-fire risk items, of pouring in chemicals? We just don't know. Is it going to be 1 in 100, 1 in 80, 1 in 50? At what point do we say, if they're not fire risks, maybe we shouldn't be pouring these chemicals into them? And then I have a firefighter here, and the California Professional Firefighters has been in strong support of this bill from day one, and you'll hear from the firefighter, because when these chemicals burn, it is a known fact that they convert to dioxin and furans, recognized as carcinogens. And that's not just concern that they breathe it. They or anyone in the home, a child for example, just gets soot from that fire of those chemicals that convert to these carcinogens, can cause cancer, just the contact of the soot. That's how serious it is. So again, I really appreciate your listening to the real facts of all of this. I'm going to introduce first our firefighter who has come out to give his time and support for the bill, and to talk about why this is important to the California professional firefighters.
All right, thank you, everybody. I just wrote a little something to keep me occupied, because otherwise I'll be going off on this. Cancer is the #1 killer of firefighters post and during our career occupation. First of all, let me introduce, my name is Christian Pebbles, and I'm a captain with Metro Fire here in Sacramento, and a 27-year veteran of the fire service. I'm here today, and I'm representing the California professional firefighters as well as our local 522. We are in strong support of this bill. The bill strikes a balance, providing the agency full authority to ensure fire safety while protecting our most vulnerable population, which is our children. They're the ones that are impacted by these chemicals. And my experience is that these juvenile products provide or promote no risk to fire. And that's from 27 years of being on the job. The International Association of Firefighters has a history of supporting efforts to eliminate the use of these harmful chemicals that, when they combust, also present a cancer threat to us as firefighters. If you look at the name of these products, they're really long and they're really hard to say. And in short terms, we as firefighters, when we see this stuff, we call it methyl ethyl bad stuff. There's nothing good about it. And I would personally like to see it not being able to put in at all. I would love to have that as a law, but I think the balance that's going on here right now is good enough for today. Chemicals are what kills us. Chemicals are what cause cancer to our people and our society. So I hope that you, as the governing body, can make the decision to support this bill and move forward to put this behind it, and maybe we could put some education as a priority, because that's what prevents fires. People. Thank you.
Thank you. Next witness.
Hi, my name is Elisa Batista, and I live in Berkeley, California. I'm here today representing MomsRising.org, which has 1.2 million members nationwide, including tens of thousands of members in California, all who would like to create and live in a more family-friendly country. As the mother of 2 small children, a son aged 5 and a 2-year-old daughter, I am tired of having to question the safety of the children's products I use. To my dismay, it is only in the last 2 years that I learned what flame retardants were. And I also learned that these chemicals were most likely in the foam of my children's stroller, their changing table, and nursing pillow. Needless to say, it was disconcerting to learn that these chemicals cause cancer and that they are required by the state to be included in most baby products with foam. Very young children have developing brains and organs which are highly at risk from exposure to toxic chemicals. Often the only alternative to regular baby furniture is high-end toxic-free products. Just to give you an idea of what these products cost, an organic cotton-filled baby changing pad is selling for $80 on a website called GoNaturalBaby.com. A similar non-organic pad at Walmart.com is available for $20. We're talking 4 times the cost for just the pad, not the actual furniture. How can parents reconcile these price differences during a recession? Needless to say, I am disappointed the bromine chemical industry has mounted such a fierce and misleading campaign against this bill, as if parents do not have enough to worry about. I'm not ordering anything from the bromine industry, yet its toxic products are included in my purchases, in my breast milk, and even my children's bodies without my approval or even public knowledge. I have no way of knowing because there are no warning labels, and I have no idea which products are healthy and toxic-free. Last week, industry members testified before the Assembly Environmental Committee that there was a fire safety hazard from baby and children's products and that their children's safety would be increased with these flame retardants. Nothing can be further from the truth. The 6 to 12-second flame resistance provided by flame retardant chemicals and foam has shown no measurable benefit in terms of actual fire protection. What is certain is that research has shown flame retardants can cause a host of life-threatening illnesses. And it is low-income residents and communities of color who are most likely to be exposed to these chemicals and fall victim to these diseases as they purchase products laced with the toxins at the big box stores. Other communities can often opt out of toxin-laden baby products by purchasing more expensive imported or toxic-free product lines of baby products like the website I mentioned. Furthermore, older or second-hand products are more likely to have crumbly foam that will escape and cause the greatest health hazard. Finally, as the Juvenile Products Manufacturers Association pointed out, this mandate has not only offered false protection in the event of a fire, but has added an extra burden to their businesses, not only exposing their workers to these harmful chemicals, but passing on the added costs to us consumers. Ridding baby products of unneeded and toxic flame retardants, such as are currently found in baby products, is good for our health and good for business. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next witness.
Good morning. My name is Dr. Sarah Jansen. I am here speaking on behalf of the Natural Resources Defense Council, or NRDC. I also have an appointment at the University of California, San Francisco in the Department of Occupational and Environmental Medicine. And I also have a PhD in reproductive biology with expertise in chemicals that mimic hormones. Many flame retardant chemicals are so-called hormone disruptors, and I'm going to be speaking today to some of the health impacts of these chemicals. Flame retardants are such a common component of our household products that every one of us in the room carries residues of these chemicals in our bodies. And unfortunately, it's because they don't stay in the products, but they leach into the house dust, which we ingest or inhale. Californians are amongst the most highly exposed people in the world, and the toddlers amongst us are carrying the highest levels of these chemicals. That's because young children, as we all know, spend most of their time near the floor where they pick up dust on their fingers and hands and ingest or inhale it when they exhibit normal hand-to-mouth behavior. Toddlers in California, on average, have 3 times the level of flame retardants in their bodies that their mothers carry. As a physician, a scientist, and most importantly, the mom of a young toddler myself, I am quite concerned that the levels of certain flame retardants found in humans are dangerously close to the levels which have been found to cause harm in laboratory animals. Health outcomes that have been associated with harm include damage to the developing brain, resulting in hyperactivity and memory problems, reproductive harm such as a low sperm count and small testis, and cancer. Troubling to me is that many of the outcomes once described only in animal studies are now being found in human studies. We have now evidence that there are disruptions in male sex hormones and thyroid hormone levels in men who are exposed to flame retardants. There are alterations in the development of male genitals, including a maldescent of the testicles in baby boys. And we've also now seen that there's poor sperm quality, resulting in infertility in men who carry higher levels of flame retardants in their bodies. Although some toxic flame retardants, such as the penta and octa formulations, have been phased out of use, the unique California flammability standard for furniture and baby products continues to mandate the use of other flame retardant chemicals. There is no requirement that the toxicity of these chemicals is tested. And for example, one replacement, the chlorinated tris, which has already been mentioned, was banned as a flame retardant in children's pajamas in the 1970s. This is because it was found to cause an unacceptably high number of cancerous tumors. However, it was not banned for use in other products and now is being used as a replacement for PBDEs in furniture, including infant strollers. Heather Stapleton, a respected researcher and expert in measuring flame retardant chemicals, has estimated that an infant stroller she recently bought contained 2 to 3% by weight chlorinated tris. Why is this exposure more acceptable than exposure from pajamas? Strollers, bassinets, nursing pillows, and other juvenile products named in this bill are not fire hazards. The bill is not about banning an individual chemical or group of chemicals, but about protecting children from the excessive use of toxic chemicals. Continued exposure is putting future generations at risk for chronic disease and irreparable harm. I urge your support on this important bill. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. For all other witnesses, your name, organization, and your position on the bill, please.
My name is Janina Pulowski. I'm the co-founder of ELOAN. I am not representing any organization. I'm actually here representing, I think, citizens that don't have a voice. So giving just my name is actually a little bit of a challenge because I can't sit here and say, flame retardants save lives. Here are some people that have been injured by fire. Let's hear them speak. It's very important that this is a complex issue, and it's an issue that is not as simple as just removing. I'm very sorry, but I was up until 4 in the morning preparing this, so I apologize.
I'm sorry.
I just want to, I just want to say it's a
I'm going to ask you to summarize your testimony, please, because I have to be fair. I have to give just as much time to the opponents.
I'm sorry. I don't mean to be a bulldog, but it's a shortcut, I believe, to jump to the conclusion that flame retardants save children's lives when they're dying in situations that are very different.
Please continue.
Children are twice as likely to die from smoke inhalation than they are from being burned. They are hiding. They're not being educated on how to get out in a situation where there is a fire. And simply putting flame retardants onto these juvenile products is a quick way to make ourselves feel much better. But it is the exact type of regulation that is making the entire country and state angry. It's a simplistic knee-jerk reaction. And we've had it for 30 years. We've shown no difference in the state of California versus other states. And yet we continue to do something that isn't working because we're trying to take a shortcut. There's a firefighter sitting next to me who for 27 years has gone in and out of homes that have been on fire and has seen children die, and he understands that this is a quick shortcut. And I think that it's unfortunate that there's a chemical industry that does not employ one person in the entire state of California, and they're holding this group and this community hostage. And that's all I have to say. So I apologize for being out of line. I'm speaking on behalf of myself as a citizen.
Thank you very much for your testimony. Next witness.
My name is Russell Long with Friends of the Earth U.S., and I'll defer to the chair's interest in keeping things very brief. I'd just like to say one quick thing, which is that we spoke with the Juvenile Product Manufacturers Association this week. we were asked by one assemblyman, have there been any lawsuits associated with these juvenile products and fire issues? And their answer was, in the past 30 years, they have not been sued even a single time related to these products on fire safety issues. Thank you.
Thank you. Next witness.
Richard Holliber with the Consumer Federation of California. This is a top priority bill for our organization. Very briefly, what we are doing here is protecting against a known health hazard.
Thank you.
And the industry will talk about an unproven hazard that this does not do anything to protect.
Madam Chair, I'm going to ask my last witnesses to be respectful of your requirement that they just give name and identification. I know it's hard not to say more, but please respect the chair's request.
Thank you very much, Mr. Leno. Welcome.
My name is Dara Baskin, and I'm the mother of a 3-year-old. I'm also a birth assistant and educator, and my position on the bill is that I'm a go for it. I'm approval.
Thank you very much.
Marta Arguello, Physicians for Social Responsibility, Los Angeles, in support of the bill.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Dr. Erica Schwilk. I'm a physician at UC San Francisco, and I strongly support the bill.
Thank you.
Pamela King Palitz, I'm the environmental health advocate for Environment California, in strong support of the bill.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Dr. Sunita Hirani. I'm from UCSF, and I strongly support the bill.
Sarah Brown from the Center for Environmental Health, strongly support the bill.
Latifa Apatera from a doctor at the UCSF, and I strongly support the bill.
Pete Price, California League of Conservation Voters, in support.
Gretchen Lee Salter on behalf of the Breast Cancer Fund, in support.
And Bill Alio, Environmental Working Group, in support. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Any other witnesses in support? Witnesses in opposition?
Thank you.
Thank you very much. You bet.
Okay, Madam Chair and members. My name is Joe Lang, and I'm here representing the Citizens for Fire Safety Institute, a group that is supported by hundreds of fire safety advocates. It includes membership of the manufacturers who manufacture the fire retardants, as well as every major burn center in the state of California, many fire departments, fire chiefs, local governments, chambers of commerce throughout the state. I have a lot to respond to here, and I'm going to try to make it as brief and to the point as I can, Madam Chair. First of all, this bill presents to you, legislators, a choice that you shouldn't have to make. It's asking you to choose between proven fire safety standards here in California, also adopted, by the way, by the Consumer Product Safety Commission on the federal level, versus an alleged and unproven health risk. Now, that health risk is subject to the Green Chemistry Initiative, which was passed by this legislature last year. And I have a witness here that will specifically talk about why, in fact, that is the case. But it's asking you to choose between the fire safety of children and an alleged health risk which has yet to be scientifically documented. You don't have to make that choice. These products, however, are a risk. And if the sergeant will assist me, I have some documents to, I think, will point that out. First of all, specifically, what I'd like to point to is the first document in the packet that I'm distributing right now. That document is, in fact, a letter from the Consumer Product Safety Commission, which is being touted by the sponsors of the bill as, in fact, indicating that these products that are included in the bill are not fire risks. If you notice in that letter, which I've distributed now, I've highlighted a couple of things that are very important that have not been told to the committee or to the members. First of all, the finding that certain products were, quote, there was no evidence of any fire risk, first of all refers to the fact that it says these were not the first items ignited. That probably is correct. Those aren't the first products that were ignited. They are the products that children are surrounded in when a fire surrounds them. But if you notice very carefully in that letter, in the highlighted section, this letter only refers to 4 products that they found no data: a stroller, an infant carrier, a bassinet, or a nursing pillow. Now if you look to SB 772 and look at the large number of items that are in fact exempted from the fire safety standard in this bill, you'll see that it includes bedding, seating furniture. It includes portable cribs, car seats, strollers, bassinets, infant carriers, walkers, backpack carriers, infant and toddler pillows, and toddler chairs, but also says includes but is not limited to. What that means, Chairman, Madam Chair, and members, while this letter may in fact state what Senator Leno says it states, which is that those 4 limited products that he asked them to review, in fact there was no evidence of any risk of fire safety, is only 4 products of the many products that are included in this bill. Secondly, in fact, they are not the first item ignited. That probably is true. But what you do have in the packets that I just handed out is a host of fire safety and fire statistics, which I think will in fact point out that many of the products included in this bill are in fact a risk. The first page I'd like to draw to your attention is quickly from the FEMA Parent's Guide to Fire Safety for Babies and Toddlers. The highlighted sentence sort of says it all. A child under the age 5 is twice as likely to die in a residential fire than the rest of the population. Secondly, the next table shows that the cause of those fires, 2 of the 5 leading causes of those fires are open flame and flame generated by heat or other spark. The next table shows when these fires occur. They occur from midnight until 7 in the morning, when people are asleep. That's very key because that's when children are most vulnerable. In the next handout, and this is a handout dated April 2005 from the U.S. Fire Administration. There are 2 key things, if you follow, that fires occur at night when people are asleep. On the 3rd page of that report, you'll see a quote highlighted that says approximately 55% of children who were killed by fire in residential structures were asleep at the time. Another 26% were trying to escape when they died. In the next paragraph, then, you'll find the really key point here, and that is that bedding and upholstered furniture were the materials first ignited in 38% of fatal child fires. So to say that these products, some of which are included in this bill, are not a fire risk, it's just not true. The last point I'd like to make in terms of whether these products are a fire risk or not is to point to some evidence that has been used by the sponsors of the bill. And this is the fire safety standard, the fire safety risk by state. And I'd like to hand this out real quickly if the sergeant would assist me again. This really speaks to the question here, Madam Chair. This is a table put together and published by the U.S. Fire Administration, an official government agency. The government agency on the federal level responsible for tracking fire safety standards. And in fact, what you'll find here, this is the hardest evidence we have that these standards, in fact, prevent injuries and deaths in fires. When you look at where California ranks, which is where we should be, California ranks 4th from the bottom. We have the 4th lowest fire safety rate of death per million residents of any state in the country, 4th lowest. Now, Senator Leno referenced, for example, in his opening, the state of Illinois, and pointed to the state of Illinois as having a better safety standard, a better safety rate than we do. In fact, according to this table, the latest data available, the state of Illinois has a fire death rate of 9.6 individuals per million people. California's death rate is 6.6, almost a 50% higher death rate. That state of Illinois does not have our fire safety standards here. Now I'd like to get on to a next key point, which is the alleged health risk of the products that are used in fire retardants. In fact, the supporters of the bill say that these chemicals were banned in sleepwear 30 years ago. The reality is that is not true. The primary chemical used now as a fire retardant in children's and adult products is a brominated version of the chemical that was used 30 years ago, which was the chlorinated version. The chlorinated version was in fact banned, and the industry did in fact come up with a safer alternative 30 years ago. That is the chemical used today, not the one that was banned 30 years ago. That's just not true. The only documented, peer-reviewed, scientifically adopted study of this particular chemical, it was done by the European Union. It was released, and in the packet that I gave to you, there is in fact a copy of their conclusions. It was released last year in May of 2008. Those conclusions are very clear. The European Union, which has a green chemistry-like initiative, which has been enacted there since 2003, conducted an official risk assessment. A risk assessment is where a board of scientists get together and, in fact, review all the data available throughout the world in terms of the health risk of these chemicals. That risk assessment was published last year, 5/29/2008. It comes to 4 conclusions. First of all, with regard to the chemical and its potential effects on workers, it says that there is need for further information. It does not come to a conclusion of health risk. More importantly, however, and I'm getting there, Madam Chair.
Oh, no, I just want to remind you, I'm going to allow 3 more minutes.
Okay.
Total. Combined.
Okay.
So.
I'm going to find out here because this science is very important. Secondly, the conclusion of this risk assessment is that there is no need for further information for consumers because there is no risk. Third is with regard to human health overall. Again, they found there is no need for further information because the risk assessment shows that risks are, quote, not expected. Now, this was a risk assessment that studied and looked at 1,100 scientific studies that were done throughout the world, and they came to this conclusion. Since we're running short on time, and I don't want to monopolize all the time, I think we made our basic points. It's a question that you don't have to be faced with, and I would leave you with one last point, and that is if this bill were to pass, you would be what would happen in the case of a residential fire in California is that the room that the adult sleeps in, the bedroom that the adults sleep in would be protected, and the room that the children sleep in would not. That just doesn't make sense. With me, I have Dr. Heimbach, former president of the American Burn Physicians Association, and he'd like to say a few words.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm the professor of surgery at the University of Washington in Seattle and the University of Washington Burn Center. I have been the president of the American Burn Association and the president of the International Burn Association, as well as a governor of the American College of Surgeons and a director of the American Board of Surgery. Last month I won a Unsung Heroes of Compassion Award from the Dalai Lama, and I oppose this bill because I'm a burn surgeon. The fact that children's mattresses and children's clothing are not reported or are not considered to be a health hazard or catching on fire is because they're not reported to the consumer health reports. We don't do that. I have at this very moment 5 children in my burn center who have been burned wearing night clothes or wearing toddler clothes when they came in contact with a flame because they're not protected with fire retardants. I will tell you about a child I took care of in April, a 9-week-old baby, about the size of a teddy bear, who was in her bed in her crib. Mom had a candle sitting beside the bed, left the room for 7 minutes. For reasons we don't know, the candle turned over. The child sustained an 80% burn. This is a little person the size of a teddy bear. We had to split open her fingers because they were so charred. We had to split open her arms. We took care of her with a ventilator, with renal dialysis for about 3.5 weeks until she subsequently died. Her hospital bill was $500,000. She was covered by state Medicaid, and therefore the state was subjected to that bill for this child who was not protected. I'm sorry, but I think that the number of kids, of which there are 300 to 400 who die every year from flame burns, outweighs the potential risk for nothing that has been proven to show that this particular chemical is going to increase their problems. I'm sorry, but I think that I feel very strongly about this.
Thank you for your testimony. Next witness.
Thank you, Madam and members. My name is Ward Benchoof. I am an attorney with the Los Angeles law firm of Alston and Bird, and I've been my practice has been in California since 1972, focused on environmental law, California's evolving programs. One of the programs that have been very closely connected with has been the California Green Chemistry Initiative. As a member of the DTSC External Advisory Board, I was involved in the discussions which advised the director on the development of that legislation, and I'm closely following it now. It's in its regulatory development phase, and I wanted to simply make 2 points this morning to you, if I could.
Okay, very briefly, please.
Number one, I understand there has been a concern that there might be a conflict between the Bureau of Home Furnishings authority to set fire standards and the DTSC's authority under the Green Chemistry Initiative. I simply want to state as strongly as I can that there is absolutely no doubt of the DTSC's authority to firmly regulate the chemicals of concern that the proponents' witnesses expressed very heartfelt concerns with regard to. So there is no conflict, there's no risk of conflict, and there's no doubt about the DTSC's authority. The one agency sets fire retardant standards, the Bureau of Home Furnishings. The other regulates the chemicals that are used to achieve those standards, the DTSC. Secondly, my last point, Madam, is that not only is there no doubt about the DTSC's authority, but there is no question that the Green Chemistry Initiative is classically designed to address the concerns that have been brought forth here today. Evaluate the chemicals of concern, evaluate the alternatives and what the regulatory response should be, up including banning of the chemical or requiring an alternative process of design that doesn't require the chemical in the first place. Classically designed for that, and I believe it could fulfill the function that the proponents' witnesses have asked for.
Thank you very much. So all other witnesses, I'm going to ask that you briefly state your name, organization that you're representing, and your position on the bill, please.
My name is Kiki Vo. I'm a burn survivor, and I greatly oppose this bill.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members. Jason Schmelzer with the California Chamber of Commerce in opposition.
Thank you.
Mike Rogi, California Manufacturers and Technology Association in opposition.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, I'm Dr. Zara McLeod, and president and founder of about 20 organizations. And we have spent all weekend, along with the kids, that have had family members and friends to have died in fires. And we are praying and appealing to you if you at least allow the two boys to speak, and the president of the Inglewood School Board. And they have come all the way up here. I told them about you, and you would allow them. I will give my time to them, if I may.
Okay, very briefly, please. Please come forward.
Hi, and good morning, ladies and gentlemen.
Good morning.
My name is Aaron Brown. I am 13 years old. I attend Frank D. Parent Elementary School, K through 8. In the next few sentences, I will tell you how fire retardant will save yours and thousands of lives. You are about to make a very important decision. Your vote. Your one vote can save many lives. I know I am only 13, but there might be another 13-year-old in a trapped building that has caught on fire because of that one vote. Kids are going to be kids. Kids want to live and have fun. Imagine hearing someone you love say, "I love you," and that might be the last time that you will hear them say that. So please vote no on SB 772 and keep us safe from fire.
Thank you for your testimony. And if I could just ask you to be very brief. Welcome.
Yes, ma'am. Hello, my name is Christopher Brown, and good morning. I'm 10 years old. I say no. Don't take fire retardants away. I say this because people need to be safe from fires. Not all fire retardants are toxic and harmful. For example, Flame Stop. It has non-toxic chemicals that can save you or your child's life. Please just consider this. I have a friend that nearly died from a fire, but she had a fire retardant in her home that saved her life, and she didn't get any cancer or anything. People need to live, especially children. I'm not asking you to close your eyes, but I just want you to imagine a child crying for help in a burning building, dying, when there was a person who only had to vote to save their life. Please save a life and vote no against SB 772. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony.
And I
Thank you.
oppose
Thank you.
Proposition 7.
So all other witnesses, I'm going to ask that you state your name, organization, and your position on the measure, please.
Laura Zuniga with the Department of Consumer Affairs. I do apologize to the author and the committee for not sending a letter in opposition. We just very recently took her position, but the department, which includes the Bureau of Home Furnishings and Thermal Insulation, is opposed to the bill.
Thank you. Next
Madam Chair,
witness.
if
Yes.
I may please, I think we've all, as authors of bills, been torpedoed like this at the last minute. You found out about the bill when? Last night for the first time? This has been in print for how many months?
Yes, I appreciate that, and I do apologize that we are taking a late position. That we just took our position. We have been aware of the bill.
When did you take the position?
Today.
Just today. Did you get a letter to my office?
No, we will get a letter to you after the hearing.
Okay. I just would like to ask, you've determined these items to be of risk? Fire risk? Have you determined these items that are in our bill to be a fire risk?
Say the Bureau established the standard because they felt that there was a risk.
I'm asking a question, a very direct question, a very specific question important to this conversation. Have you determined the items in our bill to be a fire risk? A yes or no question.
It doesn't have to be yes or no.
I can't speak to the specific items in the bill. I'm talking about the general standard of the Bureau.
All right. And if you do, if you have determined that the specific items in the bill are considered by the Bureau of Home Furnishings to be a risk, would you please, it doesn't seem like you have, but if and when you do, get that research to my office, because this is a really important matter, and this is very unprofessional of the Bureau to just drop this without any proof or determination that the items in the bill, you don't even know the answer yourself, are a fire risk.
We would be happy to discuss it further with you.
Okay, we will continue with opposition, please.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair, and to all of the great Assembly members that I'm standing before today. My name is Carol Raines Brown, and I am the board president for the Inglewood Unified School District. I'm also a court-appointed special advocate, which is known as a CASA for foster care children in the state of California. But I'm here today because I'm asking you to please vote no, and in respect to the Madam Chair, please vote no on SB 722, because if you vote yes on SB 722, it would allow children to die. And I'm asking you, please vote no on SB 722.
Next witness, please. Thank you.
Madam Chair and members of the committee, I'm Dr. Roland Holmes from Healthy African American Families in Orange County. I'd first like to state that somehow someone mentioned Healthy African American Families as being in support in this. I just read this in the agenda, and we're not. I'm here in opposition of this bill because there are no documented health impacts associated with fire retardants currently used. However, we know that fire risk to children are real and devastating, and African American children are disproportionately impacted and at risk.
Thank you for your testimony.
Good afternoon. My name is Melissa McLeod. I'm the principal of Corporate Preparatory Technological Entrepreneur Academy in the city of Inglewood, California, and I oppose this bill. Thank you.
My name is Joseph Trower, Regional Black Chamber of Commerce and the International Chamber of Commerce. I oppose this bill.
Thank you.
My name is Gloria Allen. I'm a Stockton Unified School District Board Trustee, and I oppose the bill.
Thank you.
My name is C. Jeanette Stebbins. I am a Delta College Board of Trustees, and I, too, oppose this bill.
Thank you.
My name is Edwin Lombard. I'm with the California Black Chamber of Commerce, representing 21 black chambers throughout the state of California, and we strongly oppose this bill.
Thank you. Thank you. Mr. Perez, do you still have a question? I have many. Okay. We're ready for you.
The doctor.
This is a very frustrating bill for me. It's been one that I've struggled with. It's one that I continue to struggle with as it's being presented in committee. And quite frankly, I'm going to just lay out for you what some of the hurdles are for me. And it's really that we've been talking about significantly everything but what the bill is about. The bill is about removing a regulation and a requirement to use a retardant in certain scopes, certain types of products. If we were only...
I said it was a deregulation bill.
Let me make my statement before we get into a cross conversation. But instead, we've had extensive conversation about the underlying chemical. This is what causes me frustration. I think that it's appropriate for the chemical to be reviewed, but this bill doesn't do that. This bill says we're not going to hold certain products up to a given standard with respect to fire resistance. But we've been basically talked to about this chemical as the issue. I think that the chemical is appropriately up for consideration, but not by us. And if it is by us, it should be in the form of a different bill. I think that the appropriate place for the chemical to be reviewed is through the Green Chemistry Council, or Green Chemistry process, and quite frankly, I believe that that authority does exist. Statements have been made that what this bill does is remove regulation. And I don't agree with that, and I'll let you respond to that when I'm done. I think what it does is punts regulation. It takes the ability to regulate away from the legislature, which we currently have, and imbues that authority in the BHFTI. And the way it does that is by saying that if they establish an assessment that these products pose a fire risk, that they then have the authority to regulate. So this isn't a removal of regulation, it's a transfer of regulating authority from the legislature to the Bureau. And so that causes me some concern. The most compelling statement that the author has made for me is the statement of choice both for manufacturers and for consumers. That manufacturers should have the choice of whether or not to use this product in the manufacture of their furnishings, and the choice of consumers to decide what kind of product they want to buy. And to that end, I am supportive. I am supportive of the notion of choice, but I think that choice only exists where there is disclosure. So I would ask the author if he'd be willing to take an amendment to disclose that products that don't meet the current standard, the products that we're exempting, if the manufacturers choose not to use the chemical in question, if they choose not to subject themselves to that standard that we've had for the last 30 years, that they disclose that both on the price tag and in some way that's permanently affixed to the product, indicating that the product has not been tested under California's flammability standards and may not resist open flames. And so if you'd be willing to take an amendment to have that disclosure so that the choice is there for the consumer as well. I don't think the choice should just be there for the manufacturer. And the choice for consumer is only protected if the consumer has clear knowledge about which products meet which standards.
Madam Chair, may I? Thank you, Assemblyman Perez. Always thoughtful, always astute. I am all for disclosure, and I would be happy to take that. But I want to ask you one question. Might it also make sense on the other side that for the manufacturer who makes it without the flame retardants, or with the flame retardants, that there be the disclosure that these chemicals have been banned from children's sleepwear out of concern for neurological disorders, endocrine disruption, and such? Just, we can work out the wording, but just equal disclosure. Equal disclosure.
I'm not there yet because nobody's shown me the scientific data. We haven't had, so
sure.
you made reference to documents. I've not reviewed them. I'm not willing to agree to that today. I'm not opposed to the concept, Senator. But absent us having information before us, this is what gives me discomfort. The fact that we are asked to make conclusions on scientific information that we don't have before us. And that's why I really think that with respect to the underlying chemical, the appropriate process is the green chemistry process.
Sure.
Because if the assertions that have been made by the supporters of your bill are true, then I think I'd be in support of banning the chemicals.
Right.
But I have no way of evaluating that other than by hearing the testimony that was given. So what we do know is that your legislation seeks an exemption. And so I just want a disclosure that the products, haven't met that standard, which is a standard we've established at the state level.
Okay. Thank you very much for your support with your amendment. And I'm sorry, since I just learned yesterday that you had questions about the bill, and I know it's still moving forward. I have two studies here, which of course I will share with you and the whole committee. One is the study which led the Consumer Product Safety Commission to ban the brominated fire retardants, and then also a separate study which was used and led to the industry's voluntarily removing not the brominated but the chlorinated fire retardants from sleepwear. So these are the two studies that led the industry to take these things out of sleepwear and the government's decision to take these things, and one's brominated, one's chlorinated. And then there's also the National Institute of Environmental Health Sciences, which has quite a bit of information with regard to the seriousness of these chemicals. So I'll get all that to you.
I appreciate that, Senator. And again, I do think that the appropriate way to review the chemistry is through a different process, but I appreciate your willingness to work with me on the disclosure.
You bet. Thank you.
Mr. Emerson.
I'd like to address this to Senator Leno and to Mr. Lang. There seems to be some dispute about children's clothing and fire retardant in children's clothing. It's my understanding that it changed from the chlorinated to the bromine-based material, so that there still is fire retardant in children's clothing. It's like to have both of you respond.
Why don't you let Mr. Lang go first? No, go ahead, Mr. Lang. Go ahead.
Ms. Emerson, I can tell you with great confidence that 30 years ago, in fact, the chlorinated version of the fire retardant was, in fact, banned because of health risks. The industry came up with an alternative. That alternative is the brominated version of the product, which is subject to the risk assessment recently done by the European Union, which found, in fact, after reviewing 1,100 studies, including all the studies indicated here by the sponsors of the bill, that there is no human health risk.
Unfortunately, Mr. Lang's comments are completely inaccurate. The chlorinated fire retardants that he says were banned 30 years ago were not banned 30 years ago. What I believe he meant to say is the brominated chemical called tris was, the use of it was ended by the Consumer Product Safety Commission in 1977. Subsequently, 2 years later, as a result of one of these articles in Science Magazine, one of the most prestigious science magazines in the world, they determined that also chlorinated tris was mutagenic and potentially caused cancer, and its use was also ended in all children's sleepwear. There were $500,000 fines for companies that violated this at the time. I was looking at the records, and at the time there were 240 million infant sleepwear products that had to be recalled by the manufacturers. Those were subsequently taken by the manufacturers and shipped to developing countries, Venezuela among them, and so we didn't keep them here, we sent them abroad. But the answer to the question is, in fact, the CPSC ended the use of both of those chemicals, and the chlorinated chemicals are now found as a very persistent product in baby wear. in baby products across the U.S.
So you're testifying there's no fire retardant in baby children's clothing today?
There are no chlorinated or brominated fire retardants, to the best of our knowledge, in children's sleepwear today.
Knowledge. Well, you made the statement that there was no fire retardant, but I would like to get a definite answer.
Well, I was trying to be clear that it's the chlorinated and brominated tris compounds. The industry was told to cease and desist their use in children's sleepwear 30 years ago, and neither of those is being used last time anybody checked. But the problem is the industry keeps the cycle of swapping out chemicals with molecules that look very similar to things whose use has been ended. So it's a bit of a shell game, and we never really know for sure.
Mr. Nilo?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I find my reaction and approach to this to be very similar to Assemblyman Perez. And I apologize for the stress that I know it must be causing him, that he and I end up thinking a lot alike on a lot of the questions that come before this committee. We have totally conflicting testimony and statistics relative to the risk of the chemicals, relative to the record of fire safety in California versus the rest of the country. And I would submit that we are probably not definitively going to reconcile any of those today. The opponents will continue to cite and defend the statistics they have with regard to both of those things, and the supporters will also, they will remain opposed, and particularly with regard to the chemistry, we not being experts, we're not going to parse that problem today. It was stated by Mr. Lang that we have before us an unchoosable choice. And I suppose that's true, but maybe we ought not to be the ones making the choice. I recognize the fact, Senator Leno, that your objective is to get rid of these chemicals. And you've taken a very interesting turn in your route to get there. And I do not support that. I continue to not support that unless the science proves it to me. But in the route that you've taken, you have changed the policy question. And your restated question becomes compelling to me. It has nothing to do with the chemicals themselves. It has to do with the issue of choice. And seems to me that the parents of children for whom they're buying these products should be the ones to make this choice. Who are we to make this choice? So I'm very sympathetic to the amendment, but not to your qualification. If you were to agree to a disclosure, as Senator Perez stated, and eliminate your suggestion about any conclusive character of the chemicals or disclosure with regard to the chemicals in advance of any scientific evidence, I think I can support the bill, but I cannot otherwise.
And if I could just briefly respond. Thank you, Mr. Nilo. And I'm well aware that you and Mr. Perez often think in similar fashion. And that's what makes you both so attractive.
What do you mean by that, Mr. Leno?
I find intelligence very attractive. With regard to choice and the choice for consumers, they have none today. They have none today because the state denies them that choice. And I'd like to hear your response, because We mandate this, so there is no option. Manufacturers must meet this fire safety standard. There's no way to do it without using these chemicals.
The essence of regulation is that the consumer is denied a choice. That is the essence of government regulation. So the question to us becomes, who is better to make that choice? We, as a blanket regulation, or consumers on an individual case? Sometimes I support regulation from our level, sometimes I don't, because the essence of the issue is where the decision is best and most competently made, but it's not, the decision is hampered without appropriate disclosure and information in the marketplace.
And so just to reiterate your position that with the Assemblyman's amendment, not with mine, but with his, you would be supportive?
I would. Yes, in accordance with Mr. Perez's suggestion, I would support the bill. If your request was added to it, I would not support the bill.
Thank you.
Mr. Eng?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. I just had some questions I wanted answered publicly. First of all, I want to commend both sides for bringing a lot of information to us, to me. I've spent about an hour on reviewing this yesterday and got some phone calls and information emailed to me, which I very much appreciate from the opposition. My first question is, and I'll make this very brief, the opposition says that the green chemistry legislation enacted this should take care.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
I'll repeat because you were distracted.
Yes.
The green chemistry legislation was a process that this body set up to deal with precisely this issue. In your response?
Again, we're not banning anything. The green chemistry initiative was set up with regard, in response to a series of legislators introducing legislation which banned certain chemicals. I was among them. I tried to ban chlorinated and brominated fire retardants. And we as colleagues were so overwhelmed with all of the conflicting scientific data that Assemblyman Fuhr and Huffman came up with a very clever idea and wise idea of giving this task of sorting through all of the data to the green chemistry initiative. That is with regard to banning any chemicals. I repeat.
So you're saying that it's inapplicable. Okay.
And I just also, with regard to Green Chemistry Initiative, there was some misinformation stated here. I'm reading from the initiative, from the legislation which created the initiative. This article does not limit and shall not be construed to limit the department's or any other department's or agency's existing authority over hazardous materials. This article does not authorize the department to supersede the regulatory authority of any other department. So that pretty much clarifies it.
Okay, and that was at
and
page.
I can pass this out to everybody.
Okay, you're going to pass out. The second question is the reason that your bill does not address mattresses for cribs when in fact pillows are addressed is because?
Sure. And I first want to thank Mr. Nilo's support of the bill with that one amendment. I'm going to take it a step further because you have all listened very carefully and asked very significant questions. So Mr. Lang pointed out that the bill lists a number of items that are not in this letter from the Consumer Product Safety Commission. They list 4. A review of the available consumer product-related fire injury data from the Commission's National Electronic Injury Surveillance System of 2000 to 2008 does not identify any incidents in which a stroller, infant carrier bassinet, or nursing pillow was item first ignited. I would amend the bill to just those 4 items. So again, we're dealing with items that have been determined by the federal government, specifically 4 items, as non-fire risks. So I would take...
Mr. Leno, are you also taking Mr. Perez's amendment
yes, I
as
would
well?
I would take that amendment, and we'll work in good faith to get the wording down accurately, but I'm happy to take that without mine and limit it to the 4 items listed in the letter as non-fire risks. So we know, because, and I'll leave the rest for my close.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Ng, do you still
yes,
have more questions?
I believe you answered my remaining questions.
And mattresses were never in it. So the good doctor, with all due respect, was confused that the bill included mattresses. It does not. It never did.
Because that was federally regulated.
Because it is a fire risk, and we never included it.
Mr. Monty.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We heard this before the Environment and Toxics Committee and heard from some of the same witnesses, both in support and in opposition. Clearly, the common thread here, both supporters and opponents want to do what's best to protect child safety. And the real question is, what is the best path towards protecting the health and safety of children, both from fire risk and from potential adverse impacts of chemical exposure? As suggested by my colleague, Mr. Perez, I think what this bill, as I understand it, it gives the option to manufacturers whether or not to use the retardant. I would like to see further exploration and study through the Green Chemistry Initiative that if these chemicals that are currently being used are proven to pose a risk, it shouldn't be optional. They should be banned. But until we get to that point, I think the amendment offered by Mr. Perez, which offers choice to consumers, is the logical next step prior to that further scientific information. But I just want to thank people on both sides of this issue who are driven by compelling interest to protect child safety from fire. And we shouldn't lose sight that either proponents or opponents aren't being guided by that primary concern. I want to thank the author for moving this forward.
Thank you, Mr. Monty.
Thank you, Mr. Ruskin.
Yeah, and I think, Senator Leno, I think as you work out the language with Assemblyman Perez, I think you may have a concern about what the language doesn't say. But I wouldn't be too concerned about that, because I think that the marketing of the product, the manufacturers, when having this language on their product, will of their own accord, should they choose to go in this direction, explain the benefits from the other side. So while you may find a dual-sided statement untenable for purposes of legislation, the manufacturers producing the garments or the furnishings in this way will probably balance it out themselves for their own sales value.
I think that's a very good point. Thank you.
Mr. Nava.
Yep. For Mr. Leno, where it says in the analysis it authorizes the Bureau of Home Furnishing to modify the exemption by regulation if it determines that any juvenile product poses a serious fire hazard. What was it that you were intending that the Bureau actually do?
The language in the bill, if I have it at my fingertips, which I may not. In any case, the intent was that we leave it to the governmental entity, which we, the legislature, have already given authority over the implementation of Technical Bulletin 117, to be able at any time, should they have more information from any source, to say, no, this product among the many you have exempted from the bulletin, we now determine it to be fire risk, so it will no longer be, they will no longer be exempt.
And the conversation that we've been having about, the Green Chemistry Initiative, how would that play into the role of the Bureau of Home Furnishing? How would that be coordinated?
That's for potentially alleged counsel to give you a more legal review. But as I read earlier, this article does not limit and shall not be construed to limit the department's or any other department's or agency's existing authority over hazardous materials, and does not authorize the department to supersede regulatory. So Bureau of Home Furnishings could not be superseded. That's what I believe the intent of the Green Chemistry Initiative is.
Well, let me just tell you, after seeing the demonstration today by the representative of the Bureau of Home Furnishing, I have no confidence in that agency that they would come here and take an opposed position based on what seemed to me to be an emotional response without having done any of the empirical work. Doesn't cause me to believe that they are actually carrying out their responsibilities on behalf of consumers. And if, in fact, what we are going to do is continue with the idea that the Bureau of Home Furnishings is the entity that is going to be making the scientific determination whether or not the product poses a serious fire hazard, I'm going to be very, very skeptical of any determination they make after what I saw them do here today. That was absolutely, and you don't have to agree with this, but what they did here today was shameful. To express an opinion in opposition without having done any of the homework is disgraceful. And I think as a legislature, we've got an obligation when we have an agency charged with protecting consumers who conduct themselves that way to really be very, very skeptical of their recommendations in the future and take that back to your director. Thank you.
Well, we've seen no paperwork whatsoever, so until I get some documentation, this was a lower-level bureaucrat coming to say something to us without any background. But I thank you for your comment.
Dr. Hernandez?
Yes, Senator Leno, I'd like to, if you would just clarify some comments that were made. I'm assuming you are going to be taking Assemblymember Perez's amendments. Would you please clarify your last comment? I was over here talking to somebody, and I wanted to understand exactly what you're saying about the amendments. You're willing to take a step further, and I have just a couple comments I'd like to make as well.
I just wanted to say, to relieve anyone's concern about any of the additional items that were delineated in the bill that are not referred to in the letter from the Consumer Product Safety Commission, that we would limit the bill to just those 4 products mentioned by the Consumer Product Safety Commission.
Other products that were listed in your bill.
Right. It's, I can give you line item designation, if I can find my bill. Here it is. So on page 2 of the bill, for purposes of this section, juvenile products, I'm reading from line 3-4, means any item of bedding or seating furniture with a primary intended use for children 6 years of age or younger. The term includes, but is not limited to, portable cribs, car seats, strollers, bassinets, infant carriers, walkers, backpack, child carriers, infant and toddler pillows, and toddler chairs. We would amend that list of items just to the stroller, infant carrier, bassinet, or nursing pillow.
May I ask a clarifying question on that? The only I appreciate the clarification. However, the term includes but is not limited to before the list takes away any effective value of limiting.
No, I just want the 4.
Yeah, so you're going to strike the terms includes but is not limited to.
Yes, very clear, just the 4. So there's no question. We're talking about items that have been determined by the federal government to be non-fire risks.
And Mr. Leno, you're also Mr. Leno? You have another, Mr. Leno, you have another amendment that you're also taking, right, to label products? You're taking Mr. Perez's amendment as well?
Yes, yes. And I want to...
I want to finish my statement.
Not because I'm not interested in getting into a debate with Assemblyman Perez over this. And in good faith, we will find the language. But I think what gives me comfort is I believe Mr. Ruskin's got a good point, that a manufacturer required by the state to put that on there would probably put another tag on it that says this product has been deemed by the federal government to be a non-fire risk, and that's an obvious thing they would do.
Okay, I think Dr. Hernandez still has a question.
Yeah.
So.
Right. And then just some comments to just kind of follow up. You know, I believe that this piece of legislation still is a chemical ban, even though I know you say it's not. And I do believe that that's the role of green chemistry to be able to do that. I do agree with Assemblymember Perez when he said that, you know, with regard to choice and also that's another option. But let me just give it a little bit different twist. And if this truly were found to be scientifically proven that flame retardants do save lives.
I'll get you the same studies that ban these very chemicals, brominated and chlorinated from children's
But I'm not talking about chemical bans. I'm not talking about chemicals. I'm just going to play devil's advocate because I'm still torn, you know, on this measure, and I'm still torn on the choice portion. Let's say that fire retardants are proven to save lives, and we give consumers that choice of getting a product that has a fire retardant and a product that does not have a fire retardant. And let's assume that green chemistry finds that that product is safe or unsafe, and then they change the chemical makeup to make it safe. But then we can also argue, well, why don't we give consumers the choice of using seat belts or car seats? you know, if that's the case, then we should expand that choice to everyone other product. And I think the concern that I have is that if we're making that choice and if it's proven that it does save lives, shouldn't we as legislative body make that choice to not give them that choice so that we can do what's the absolute best interest of the consumer so that they don't get, in effect, have a problem with any kind of fire? So I'm just raising that question and that concern because obviously this came up at the last minute. You know, I commend them for bringing that amendment forward, but I'm still torn because now we're going to give individuals a choice that maybe perhaps we shouldn't. And I'm just raising that question. Thank you.
I appreciate your comments, Assemblyman. It's not quite the analogy because the choice with this, in effect, would be for the consumer to choose put the choice as Mr. Lang framed it in his opening statement. Let the consumer decide and do his or her own research and to say, you know, I've talked to my firefighter, and my firefighter said these chemicals are killing firefighters at greater rates of any other profession in the world, and so that makes it a dangerous chemical. I don't want to buy it. Now, another one might say that I'm concerned, even though the tag says this product, and actually the short answer to my question is, and that's why I amended the bill to be just for products that are non-fire
going back
risk.
to that argument that you just made right now, if that's the case, and I really believe green chemistry, if they find those products to be a hazard to either consumers or a hazard to the firefighters, let's get rid of them. I'm all in support of get rid of them. I'm not arguing with you.
Again, that's why we've limited to just 4 items that are not fire risks.
Mr. Lang, does the proposed amendments remove your opposition?
Madam Chair, I'm sorry to say I can't answer that question right now because of the specific items that were exempted. I will tell you this. It goes a significant part of the way, I think, to helping to address some of the fire safety concerns with regard to the products, the exhaustive list that was in the bill. I suspect that we still would be opposed because we do believe there is another way to look at the risk, which is the green chemistry process. However, I really can't say right now. It is going part of the way. I appreciate the spirit in which the amendment is offered by the committee members. I'll get back to you all as soon as I can. But I know that probably doesn't answer your question for today, but I just, not knowing all the different products and having differentiated, it's hard for me to answer yes or no.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you. Mr. Leno, would you like to close? I think we're going to try to wrap this up. Did you have a question, Ms. Conway?
Not really a question, Madam Chair. Just
go ahead.
Senator, this has been compelling, you know, as a mother and now a grandmother of 2 grandchildren that mean the world to me, probably the most important thing. And so, you know, I probably, like everybody else here, you know, being torn with it. But at this point, I'm compelled. I think I'm still in oppose because of the protection that is, I believe, currently offered, which doesn't mean to say that from what I'm hearing around here, perhaps this will be moving on and I'll have another opportunity to look at it. I just haven't had enough time, but I do appreciate the testimony. Unfortunately, I'm a person that really likes to have a lot of time to make decisions, and I realize the nature of this body is that sometimes it's just like that, just like people show up and say, by the way, and I get that. So I really do appreciate the spirit. I hope that it's done for child protection. I'm going to be in oppose today because I'm kind of erring on the side of what I believe is protection for them now.
Thank you, Assemblywoman. And I will do the committee the favor of waiving my dramatic conclusive comments with the understanding that with the amendments offered that Mr. Nilo and Mr. Perez, among the others I've talked to, are in support of the bill.
Thank you. Mr. Lang, did you want to say something?
I just want to make sure there's 2 amendments. It's limiting the products and the labeling disclosure. So I know what to get.
That's correct.
Correct.
Thank you.
I want to thank everyone who traveled to Sacramento, and thank you, Mr. Leno, and all the questions and comments by the committee members. Thank you.
As amended, and it was a dramatic closing statement, but I'll spare you.
Madam Secretary, please call the roll.
Motion is due pass as amended to appropriation. Hayashi?
Aye.
Hayashi, aye. Emerson? Conway? Conway, no. Ing? Ing, aye. Hernandez? Nava? Nava, aye. Nilo? Nilo, aye. John Perez? John Perez, aye. Ruskin? Ruskin, aye. Smythe? Smythe, no. Monin? Monin, aye.
7 to 2, your measure's out.
Okay, hey, you know what? Thanks for all your support with us. You know, we couldn't do a lot what we do without your support, really, especially now that times are tough. You know what I mean? So, and I appreciate your support for us.
Kristen does a great job for you.
Yeah. Cool. Anytime you need some help, just let us know. All right.
Good
Take
to meet
care.
you.
You too.